Okay, well, why don't we start? This is the March meeting of the ANC3D, and I'd like to call us to order and move to the agenda. We have three changes to the agenda that I'd like to get approved. The first is that in discussions, we're going to add the Consumer Protection Unit of the Department of Licensing will explain some things about consumer protection. I think that this is actually Consumer Protection Week. The second is that we're going to delete the zoning commissioners, the zoning commissions, ZC 24-20 concerning rear setbacks. And the third is we're going to delete proposed letter about the intersection of Foxhall and Reservoir Roads. I would like to make a motion to adopt the agenda as amended. Is there a second? Commissioner Simkowitz seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I think we have 6 votes in favor. So that's approved. Let's move right to updates. Officer Tony McElwee.
Hi, good evening, commissioners. Good evening, everybody in attendance. Can you hear me okay?
Absolutely.
All right, well, thanks for having us here, as always. It's always a pleasure. I'm going to start off with the February monthly report. We had 24 offenses in February, 2 burglaries, 15 theft from autos, and several general thefts. I'm going to start out with the burglaries. The first burglary was in the 4800 block of MacArthur Boulevard on February 22nd at 3:22 a.m. 2 male subjects, one described as black and one an unknown race, kicked in a glass door of a business and stole some items from inside the business. There was a witness who resided in the building that observed the 2 subjects fleeing the scene in a silver sedan along MacArthur Boulevard. The other burglary was on the 4800 block of Glenbrook Road. On this burglary, officers from the 2nd District responded on February 16th at 2 p.m. for a burglary in progress. The caller provided a description of the suspects, and our MPD crime suppression team officers were in the area and located this individual walking in the 3600 block of 49th Street. The CST officers were able to connect this individual to the incident on Glenbrook Road, and they identified him as Jack Tekatharkacharkin. It's a long name. I did my best, but he's age 25. He was familiar with that location from past experiences, and they had actually had a stay away order for him. That suspect was placed under arrest and charged. Moving into our theft from autos, we have seen an uptick of theft from autos within the PSA 205 area, particularly within the 4800 block of Massachusetts Avenue, in the area of the Spring Valley Shopping Center and the little strip mall where Compass Coffee and Starbucks is at, and Crate and Barrel. These subjects are looking inside vehicles for items left in plain view. From our experience, when they see these items, they break the windows out on the vehicles with a tool that we believe it's called a center punch. It's kind of like a pen, it's spring loaded. And they put it up against the side window of the vehicle, and it cracks the window. It doesn't make any noise at all. You don't hear the glass trickling down on the ground. It's quiet. They push their hand through, they grab the item, and off they go. Some of the victims in these theft from autos are only away from their vehicles for 5 to 10 minutes. To give you an idea how quick these suspects are, several of the victims are just running into like the Starbucks to grab a cup of coffee, or the Compass Coffee. This tells us that these suspects are watching the victims park their vehicles. The second district, Captain Haskins actually put out a display sign out there warning the folks to remove all items and please lock their vehicles. We also, the second district has added extra patrols to include our crime suppression unit. All the vehicles involved have had items like purses, wallets, backpacks, along with other items of interest in plain view. Again, as I say at every meeting, I'm even guilty of it, at times, but please try to remember to remove your items from your vehicles before leaving the vehicle, no matter how briefly you're gone. If you see anything suspicious, like someone walking around these vehicles anywhere, please call 911. We're confident we will eventually apprehend these suspects. We will catch them probably in the act and/or by an alert citizen who will bring it to our attention through the 911 system. We did have 7 general thefts. I'm not going to go into all of them, but these thefts range from shoplifting, the porch packages being removed, and items left unattended inside office buildings, and a few retail thefts, particularly at the Walgreens on New Mexico Avenue. While we're talking about the porch thefts, the second district has Amazon boxes right in front of our district. Video cameras cover them. They're free of charge. I know it could be an inconvenience, but if you're having a problem in your neighborhood, please take advantage of that. It's free of charge. I would like to also point out that the Metropolitan Police Department did arrest an individual, and we solved 4 burglaries. 2 of the burglaries were in the PSA 205 area. The subject that was arrested was 38-year-old Reginald Collowell. I don't know if you can see his picture. And he was arrested back on February 5th. And he was charged with several burglaries, several thefts, and a couple destruction of property incidents. The 2 burglaries in our area, one was a burglary that was committed on June 20th of 2024 in the 4700 block of Foxhall Crescent. So we connected him to that. He was arrested for that. And we had a burglary on October 28th, 2024. And that was in the 4400 block of P Street down in Foxhall Village. And he was connected to that. The theft one was 5600 block of MacArthur Boulevard and the 4800 block of Rockwood Parkway. So I'm happy to put that out there. Real quick, just going into traffic, and then I see the Captain Haskins is out there, and we'll jump in the questions or complaints or concerns.
Anyone have questions? That was pretty thorough. I don't hear any questions.
It looks like there's a hand up in the audience.
Oh, great. Okay. Ms. Tursoff.
Hi, I was wondering if you could give us any information about the accident that occurred at Foxhall and Reservoir where a car ended up overturned?
Yes, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes, I was just talking about that. I don't know if it skipped out.
Oh,
We did have an accident. It looked pretty serious. It was serious, but there was no serious injuries. It was property damage, but the vehicle had turned over onto its roof. It was a 2-vehicle accident right there, and that was on February 27th, Thursday evening. I don't know, I know there was we call them notices of infraction, but I know one of the drivers received a ticket. But there were no serious injuries. There was no injuries at all. It was property damage.
okay. I must have misheard the location on that one. So it was the impact that caused it to overturn?
Yes, one vehicle struck another vehicle, causing
Okay.
that vehicle to turn on its roof and land on the island there at Foxhall, just where it meets Reservoir Road.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, and while we're on Foxhall Road, in light of these accidents out there, I am going to be concentrating in the month of March, Foxhall from Reservoir down to Volta. the crosswalks at Volta, Q, as well as Foxhall, as well as the folks that are going south on Foxhall and go straight in the left turn lane. So we're going to focus on traffic enforcement out there for the next 30 days. Really, myself and my colleagues, and whatever stats I get, I'll bring to your April meeting. The other areas we focused on for the month of February was 4600 block of MacArthur Boulevard for speeding, 3600 block of Canal Road for speeding, red light running at Arizona and MacArthur Boulevard, and the 4900 block of Lawboro. There was a particular complaint from speeding, so I was out there. And finally, for March enforcement to also include Foxhall, I'm going to give special attention for the cut through traffic. Traffic's picking up with everybody coming back to work. When I say with the federal workers, I've seen it. The traffic is backing up. We know they're cutting through Sherrier Place, Carolina, Dorset, and Potomac during the evening rush hours. So I'm going to address that. And I think that'll be included with the Foxhall. And with that said, I see Captain Haskis is online here. If he wants to jump in.
No, you've covered everything very nicely, McAwee, Officer McAwee. If anybody has any questions, I've been working very hard on trying to catch those theft from auto people, so we're tracking them. They've been using credit cards in other parts of the city, so that's been my kind of project.
All right. Does anyone have any other questions?
Thank you all.
Being none, I think we should move to our moker, Mr. Gibson.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, it's
Oh, I'm
Nick
sorry.
Gibson. No,
Yeah.
that's all right. It happens all the time. It's a problem with having a gender neutral name. But hi everybody. My name is Kendall Gibson. I'm the Ward 3 manager in Mayor Bowser's Office of Community Relations and Services, otherwise known as Mokers. Easier to just say Mokers. I have a couple things to share with you this evening. First, I want to wish you all a happy Women's History Month and invite you to celebrate by participating in the Her Story 5K. You can run or walk this Sunday throughout our beautiful downtown area. The event will begin at 9:15 a.m. for the Kids Dash, where kids will compete in a very short race. We're talking like 20 yards. And then the official race begins at 10 a.m. And the starting line is at Freedom Plaza, which is at 14th and Pennsylvania. The 5K is open to dogs as well as strollers. You can treat it like a timed race if you would like to, but if you want it to be a more relaxing, nice walk, then that is open to you as well. At the end, I'll drop a registration link in the chat for you to register. It's free for everybody. Second, I want to share with you about the exciting developments of the RFK Stadium. As many of you know, Mayor Bowser has been working for many years to revive RFK and bring the Commanders back where they belong in our nation's capital. It's time to bring an anchor towards 7, and this development will stimulate the area much like the Nationals ballpark has. But we want to give you all an opportunity to share ideas for RFK's open space. The campus is over 130 acres, and there's a lot of ideas that are being thrown around to develop it into usages that would benefit all Washingtonians. For more information and to assist with the brainstorming, please visit rrkourfk.dc.gov to contribute. And if you would like to add your thoughts, click the engagement tab. It's like on the upper right-hand corner of the screen, and I'll put that in. Finally, I want to let you know about a piece of legislation that will help support affordable housing systems in Washington, D.C. Since Mayor Bowser took office in 2015, D.C. has expanded affordable housing to 15,000 units, which represents a $1.5 billion investment. But affordable housing providers have always faced tight margins, and COVID has certainly exacerbated these margins. Since the pandemic, DC's economic vacancy rate has risen between 15 and 20%. To tackle this issue, Mayor Bowser has introduced the Rental Act to protect affordable housing and ensure DC can build more affordable housing units in the future. This bill does a few things, including making the Emergency Rental Assistance Program, otherwise known as ERAP, permanent. It modifies the eviction process to pre-COVID timelines. It strengthens tenant safety protections and increases the local rent supplement program eligibilities. If you're interested in learning more regarding the Rental Act, please visit rentalact.dc.gov, and I will drop that in the chat. But that's my spiel. As always, the Mokers are available to the community with any DC government related needs, or if you just want to communicate something up to different agencies or up to Mayor Bowser. If you have an inquiry for DC government or for Mayor Bowser, please reach out to me. I will drop all of this information as well as my contact information in the chat. But I want to thank the commissioners for your service and thank you for having me tonight.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions? Hearing none, let's move on to Ward 3 Councilmember Fruman's office. Nora, you're here, right?
I am. Hi everyone. I'm taking over for Hannah Faludi, who's moved out of our office. And I'm a legislative assistant for Councilmember Freeman covering education, the education portfolio, but I'm also covering 3D and I'm happy to be here. So just a couple talking points for our office. The DPW street sweeping began on Monday, sorry. Ticketing starts March 17th, so crews are wrapping up leaf collection throughout the city, completing second passes to gather any remaining leaves. As season winds down, starting Monday, March 3rd, street sweeping and ground maintenance began. DPW continue handling leaf service requests while transitioning to spring services. There will be a 2-week grace period for ticketing vehicles parked during posted street sweeping hours from March 3rd through March 14th. Parking enforcement, though, will begin issuing tickets for street sweeping starting Monday, March 17th. DC also has a new site, fedsupport.dc.gov, which I will drop in the chat, for resources for recently unemployed federal workers. It includes information on unemployment insurance, how to apply, resources for job seekers, federal employment guidance, and DC government opportunities. And then some legislative updates. So the council continues to hold performance oversight hearings for district government agencies. Councilmember Freeman chairs the Committee on Human Services, or DHS, which held an oversight hearing for DHS for public witnesses today, Wednesday, March 5th, and will host government witnesses on Friday, that's March 7th. For a full schedule of remaining hearings, residents can view the council calendar, which I'm also happy to put in the chat, although it's DC Council's website. But the budget process, so a little bit about that. Last week, the Chief Financial Officer, the CFO, released his revenue forecast, which serves as a ceiling for expenditures in the coming fiscal year and predicted an average of $342 million drop in revenue in each of the next 3 years, or a decline in revenue by more than $1.1 billion over the next 4-year financial plan. So this significantly exacerbates the challenges we'll face in constructing budget proposals for next year. Councilmember Freeman and other council members will submit their budget letters to the mayor for consideration. I think Councilmember Freeman is doing that this week, by the end of this week. Then at the start of April, the mayor will present her proposed budget to the council. Council committees will then initiate the second piece of the agency by agency review, holding hearings focused on specifically on each agency's proposed budget. The council will then vote on the budget in late May or early June. So any questions about that, I'm happy to answer. but through email is best so we don't have to take up too much time. And to stay updated, of course, we have our Ward 3 newsletter, so constituents can receive the latest updates and information from our office directly to their email inbox every other Thursday. I believe that this is not a newsletter week, but the next is. The latest Ward 3 newsletter came out last week. The next comes out March 13th. And past newsletters are all available to read and sign up for at mattfreemanward3.com. That's mattfreemanward3.com. That's it.
I
Very
have a
good.
question for you.
Yes.
I did read that they're projecting $342 million each year over 3 years. Where are they seeing that money not coming from? Like, where are they seeing that drop?
I can send you what the CFO. It's more detailed than I don't wanna get this wrong. So let me send you what the CFO produced in the report.
Okay.
And follow up
And
with
since you're on
you.
the education committee, if funding for the federal Department of Education were to completely go away, which looks like it could be likely, can you tell us how that is going to, like, how much of DC public schools relies on federal funding? Do you know?
It's significant. The Title I funds, the Title II funds, IDEA, which is special education funding, a lot of grants for out of school time. So it would hit our school system hard, specifically in schools that receive that title funding for like economically disadvantaged students. That hasn't happened yet, and school budgets were released last week. And Ward 3 schools seem to have their needs met so far. It's looking like we avoided what kind of happened last year with the council needing to add money at the end for schools in the budget process. But yeah, I mean, that's a question that we're all grappling with, and at this point, it's still unclear how that would shake out, but we do know where the federal dollars are. I mean, every school in the if you look on dcpsbudgets.com, every school lines out their FTEs and which are program or grant funded or local or federal dollars that are apart from this. And if that were to go away, I mean, you would see those FTE equivalent dollars go away.
Does anybody else have questions? All right, well, thank you very much. Is there anyone from Department of Transportation? Is Christian here or someone else? I don't see Christian's name. Okay, why don't we move on to the local universities and colleges. American University, I think I saw Jason. Please
Yes.
go ahead.
Hey, how you guys doing? Thank you for having me. And yes, for those of you who don't know who I am Jason Middleton, the Director of Community Relations at American University. Just a couple of quick updates. We wanted to let folks know that we actually sent out an update from our Public Safety Division about the Campus Safety Steering Committee and a process actually finally coming to an end and a decision being reached on maintaining current AUPD safety measures and procedures and protocols. So for a couple years, going back to a study that was commenced about whether or not AU police officers would need to be armed for response situations to have lethal force. We discussed this, over the course of years with our campus safety review, which kind of, incorporates members of the community, our steering committees, of course, conversations with students and faculty. And we, over the course of a couple year long process, we determined that we are not going to change any of our safety or procedures or protocols, and we're going to stay with a less than lethal equipment approach, which includes pepper spray and ASB batons in the event of an emergency response situation. So the process that we went through to come to this decision featured, extensive community input. We sent out a survey that had over 2,600 responses from neighbors and more than 20 different community forums where this was brought up and discussed at length. And we just recently sent that out to our constituents officially this week. So I wanted to make sure that this body was aware of that, and we want to always provide as much opportunities for transparency and awareness when it comes to public safety on campus, because that of course translates to the public safety in the neighborhood. So I just wanted to cover that piece of housekeeping before I get to the upcoming events and things going on campus, if anyone has questions.
Questions? No?
Okay, hearing none. The only other thing I've got is a couple of major happenings around campus this coming the next coming weeks here in March. One is actually tomorrow, and it is the men's basketball quarterfinal of the Patriot League tournament. So this is huge. This is American University's men's basketball team has had an awesome season. They're #2 in the Patriot League, and #2 in their conference right now. And we're actually going to be able to host a quarterfinal game tomorrow. It's at 7 o'clock at Bender Arena versus Lafayette. This is the start of March Madness. So if AU is able to win its next 3 games, that means they punch their ticket for the big dance. So it's really exciting. We've been getting great attendance all year. I will drop the link in the chat where you can purchase tickets. I believe the first 300 or 500 fans are going to get a free rally towel. So it'll be a crazy atmosphere. Our second-year coach is having a great year, and this is going to be the first time that we've got a chance, not a chance, but if we can reach the tournament, it'll be the first time we've done so in 11 years. So really big deal, and I hope as many of you as possible can make it out to the game tomorrow night. And then after that, we've got a couple more events lined up for the rest of March. We've got a spring garden prep tour for neighbors, our AU Community Garden, which is led by environmental science majors that are either juniors or seniors. They run a community garden that is completely free and open to the public, and they're hosting an event that basically welcomes the neighbors into the program, where you can share produce, access their seed library, and learn about different ways to create home fertilizers and prep your home garden for the spring. So that's Saturday, March 22nd. And that, of course, is free, open to the public. And then in the last week of March, we've got the inauguration of our 16th president. President Jonathan Alger has been here since July, and the formal inauguration ceremony is scheduled to take place March 27th through March 29th. There's going to be a slew of events that are open to the public. So everything from music performances to history tours, special guest lectures, a bunch of stuff that is really going to be like the culmination of a big process to celebrate the inauguration of President Alger. So 3 big events coming up, and the most important of which, tomorrow night's basketball game and March Madness beginning. So that's it from American University. I'll post all this information in the chat, and feel free to reach out to me with any questions.
Very good. Does anyone have any questions? All right. Well, thank you so much. Is anyone here from George Washington? I did not see Kevin or Gabriella. So why don't we move on to Georgetown, Corey Peterson.
Hey, how's everybody doing? Appreciate the opportunity to speak again today. Again, if the folks don't know who I am, my name is Corey Peterson. I'm our AVP for Community Engagement and Local Government at Georgetown. Just a few quick announcements. One, we're in the middle of our spring break, so if you have ventured down near the university, you'll notice it's fairly quiet. That wraps up this weekend, and students will be back in force on Monday. We've launched a program with our neighbors in conjunction with our library called the Maker Hub Neighbor Program. So if you have a special special talent or skill that you'd like to share with our community, our library has a Makers Hub. So think of if you've ever tinkered with taking apart a toaster and putting it back together to replace a fuse or anything along those lines, or have a special art or talent. We're looking for community members to participate in that and be able to teach some of our students a little bit on how to be more of a maker. I'll drop some information in the chat on how to apply to be a part of that. It's a pretty cool program that we've launched recently. The next thing I will now say is that our Henley Village, our new residence hall that we have been building for the last couple of years to replace our old Henley Village, will open this fall. And as a result of that, we'll return our hotel on campus back to a hotel. And so we're in the middle of that process. There was an open house last week. We've selected our vendor, and they will renovate the hotel back to a hotel and a conference center. And I'll drop the information so you can see what that looks like in the chat. And there will also be, they're going to renovate the faculty club to be a restaurant. So we'll actually have a restaurant here on campus as well. Those are the 3 updates that I've got. I'll drop my information in the chat. If anybody has any questions, happy to answer them.
Very good. Commissioner Simkowitz.
Mr. Peterson, thanks for the nice little plug on the Maker Hub. My wife, as you know, teaches there, and I think it's really successful for the students and the faculty members. And she actually likes doing that. It's a pretty cool program. Also, it's good that you're making the faculty club back into a restaurant. I think it closed right after I graduated in 1991. It was overpriced and the food was only average. So I hope that you make it into a better restaurant. And having a hotel there is good for our visitors. For even if you're not affiliated with the university, I know a lot of people would stay there when they come to our neighborhood because it was just so convenient. So thank you, and good luck with that project.
Yeah, well, thank you, and thank your wife for being a part of our Maker Hub.
Oh,
It's
sure.
awesome.
Corey, is there a timeline on the hotel? What's the target date? A couple years out?
No. We want to. They want to be pretty aggressive in changing it back from a residence hall. Most of it, what you'll see online, what they're doing is they're gonna take out like the doubles, put them back, the nice hotel beds, the queens and kings, put up some new wallpaper. They'll do a lot of work around the bathrooms to retile and make that look more presentable. It's been used as a residence hall for the last 2 years. So think of your own children and how rough they are in their rooms, right? So this is an opportunity to refresh it and make it a world-class hotel again, where we can host folks on campus. So, but they're going to start that this summer with hopes and anticipation of having it open next fall.
Thank you.
Commissioner Simkowitz.
Mr. Peterson, what star level are they trying to reach? Is it going to be a 4-star again, like I think the original design was when I went there? Or,
That is a good
it's slipped over the
question.
years.
I don't know if I know the answer to that. It looks like they could achieve that, but I am not the expert there to be able to give that. That's a good question, though. I could try to find that out for you.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Mr. Peterson? Hearing none, I think we should move on. I don't think anyone here is from Wesley today. So I think we can go right to the German embassy, Mr. Spiescher.
Yes, hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, very well.
Yes, sir.
I'm trying it this time with my mobile phone because on my laptop I can't get the camera running. Yes, for those who don't know me, my name is Kai Spiescher. I'm the head of administration of the German embassy, and I regularly report in this meeting about our construction project, the renovation of a parking lot, which has its main exit to the Reservoir Road. And I'm happy to report that it's working, that we are on time, and also budget-wise, everything works fine. There were lots of earth movements in the last 2, 3, 4 weeks, and this actually caused a few problems, complaints from neighbors. Councilmember Nowak was also involved in some emails going around, and so it was that the matter was that lots of trucks arrived very early in the morning, of course, and because of these very low temperatures of the last several weeks. They had their engines running, idling, parking there on the side, and it was noisy, and of course also pollution, the smell, and so of course there were complaints. I understand the neighbors completely. We tried. We had guards outside and went from truck to truck also, but it was a bit difficult because, as you maybe know, it's not always the same truck drivers. These are contractors and subcontractors and subcontractors, and to pass on the message is that they're not allowed to, according to DC regulations, to stay there and stand there and let the engines idling. That's not allowed. But also, of course, we understood that in these freezing temperatures early in the morning, sitting in their trucks, it was difficult. But I think we made it. We talked to most of them, and it's working out fine now. The good thing is that most of the earth movement is gone now. It's finished. There will be a little bit more in a few weeks, but it won't be that much. Now there's working with concrete walls, and so there's not that much truck trafficking, and no trucks standing there and parking there in front of the neighbors' houses. So I'm glad that this finally is over, this difficult situation. But it's up to now, it's working good.
Are there any questions? Questions? Yes, Commissioner Simkowitz.
Guten Abend, Herr Spiesche.
Hello.
I sent you an email. One of our former constituents went back home to Deutschland and is coming back to visit and wants to bring their kids to the White House. And I was wondering if you had a chance to find out how they can reserve those passes, because it has to be done because they're a German citizen living in Germany. They have to be done through your embassy.
Well, the embassies don't do this. I know it's on the website of the White House that people should go through their embassies, but we don't have the capacity, and normally no embassy has this. I mean, I don't know how many thousands of Germans come to Washington DC and all want to visit the White House. So it has to go through the websites of some senators, I think, or members of the House on their websites. There are links to this, and they should mention the address where they are staying and apply early enough. But it doesn't go through the embassies. This would be a service we just wouldn't have the manpower to provide this.
Well, I mean, I hate to beg to differ, but I called the White House itself, and they said you can't go through your congressperson because they don't have a congressperson. Moreover, if they were to try to go through the website and apply, it would reject it because they don't have an address, where they live in DC. And the tours were just reopened by President Trump, I think, a week ago. So the obviously the situation has changed, but I think that somebody from the German embassy should call the White House and say, look, can you give us access to a form that we can use to give to our own citizens to apply? Because otherwise, nobody from a foreign country is ever going to be able to get to go to the White House, which is bad for America. And your own citizens.
Well, there were tours all the time in the last years or so. That was no problem, actually. But I don't know how people coming from Germany who didn't have any contact person here in DC or so, how they managed. But I know that there were Germans who managed to get into and visit the White House.
Well, I mean, I think the point that I'm trying to make, and we have a lot of foreign citizens that either live in our neighborhood or travel here. I think that the Trump administration changed the policy, And
Okay.
I don't know if you're aware of that. So if I
Yeah.
were you, I would call the White House and say, hey, I'm from the German embassy. What do we do when we have citizens that want to go there?
Yeah. Well, we can try. We can find out. I didn't hear anything of a new policy. It wasn't communicated to the embassies. But we will try and find out, and
Yeah,
let's see
please
what
do
we
that,
can do.
and then give me a call back. I think I sent you their contact
Yes.
information as well.
Yeah. I have it here in front of me.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, let's move to commissioner updates.
Commissioner Horn, if this is Sherry Rutherford, if I could give a quick update on behalf of the field school, I would really appreciate it.
Oh, sure.
And it's good news, and I'll be very brief. So I just wanted to let the commission and members of the community know that the BZA voted today unanimously to approve the field school's application that this ANC supported last month. So just wanted to thank everyone for their support, all the work that everyone. This has been we've worked together on this for about 6 months, and even before that, to get everyone aligned. We went in with full support. It was noted at the hearing that did not go unnoticed, that we have a single day hearing for a private school in the District of Columbia is unusual. And so both the commission and the BZA board members, as well as the zoning commission member who sat on the board for today, both noted that and wanted to thank the ANC directly. So again, I just wanted to pass that along. We expect a summary order, which means an order in a matter of a couple weeks, not months, and then we can move on to permitting. So couldn't have asked for a better outcome, but again, just wanted to thank the ANC for your support and your guidance along the way.
Very good. Any questions? Seeing none, let's move on to the commissioner updates. Commissioner Elkins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't have anything tonight. Thank you.
Commissioner Duncan.
The Transportation Committee met last week, and we have 2 items on the agenda today, and we at this time do not have our next meeting scheduled, but that will be scheduled very soon, and we'll be sure to announce that.
Very good. Commissioner Blumenthal.
Thank you. ANC3D got notice this week that Claudio's Table, the restaurant on MacArthur near Cathedral, is applying for a renewal of their liquor license. This is a standard 3-year thing, as I understand it. The placard to that effect will appear on the front of the restaurant on Friday, and we have until April 21st for petitions or letters of opposition. So we will add that to our agenda next month and discuss it then. I don't know if I'm the only one in this meeting who cares about completion of the alley drain pipe reconstruction on the alley between Carolina and Sherrier in our neighborhood. The crew, I know about this because it's right outside my window every morning for the last 3 months as they've been digging up the alley. The crews told me this morning that they're about to start work on pouring concrete, so we may be a few weeks away from completion.
Good news.
Less trucks and stuff parked out everywhere around the neighborhood.
Is that what those huge culverts are sitting in the roadway?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
This alley has been, my neighbors have had flooding problems for decades, and they finally put in a big drain sewer, storm sewer in that alley, and they're rebuilding the alley.
Great.
I'll do the commissioner update next. Et Voila has a liquor license renewal coming up, and we'll take it up at the next meeting. And that's all I have. Commissioner Nowak?
Similarly, I have an item on the agenda, the Bang Bop settlement agreement, but we are going to take that up next month. That agreement now is in the hands of those restaurants' owner, and their ABCA hearing is set for May. So I'm confident that well before our April meeting, we'll have agreement between the ANC and the applicant, and we can move forward in support of that license.
Very good.
Commissioner Horn, I forgot to give another update. I spent a lot of time watching BZA today. Do you remember 5122 Cathedral Avenue?
Of course.
Like 2.5 years ago? We had another hearing with them today because still no building permit has been issued. It is still with DOEE, and the owner, Mr. Agarwal, was at the hearing, and he said that he's been going back and forth with DOEE, Department of Buildings, and the owner wanted to, they were claiming that all the zoning issues were resolved with the building permit. We argued once again that we want to stay on the docket until we actually see a building permit issued. The BZA sided with us, so another 90 days. And we are hoping that sometime within those 90 days, there's a building permit and it's going to be what we think it is. And then we are going to drop this case. But until then, I'm going to show up every 60 or 90 days at the BZA to argue our case. So that's what happened today.
Commissioner Duncan, is this the one where he dug out the foundation and the city ended up filling it in for lack of proper permits?
Nope. This is before that that was Sherrier. This
Okay.
is the one when Commissioner Jeremy Joseph was here.
Yeah.
It's on Cathedral Avenue. This is where he was going to put a house that covered like 70% of the lot. And we saw the plans before they started work. And so we appealed, we went to the Department of Buildings and they ignored us. So we appealed the building permit to the BZA and they
Yeah.
hadn't started work yet. They started work anyway. He like dug out a whole foundation, tore down most of the house. And then I think there were 3 building permits that were issued and then they were rescinded. And we are now here. He told us at the meeting that because it's a vacant building, that his property tax is $75,000. So
Ouch.
he is getting, I have to say that this has been a godsend because I thought he was trying to wait us out and try and maybe slip something in that that we didn't want him to do, that the city was going to let him do. And the BZA has really been a backstop for the neighborhood. And this $75,000 tax bill that he is facing, he is going to have to go and build a house that is to the zoning code.
Hmm.
Yay us.
Well done.
Very good. Commissioner Simkowitz?
Hi, I attended Mayor Bowser's budget engagement forum Saturday, and the thing that's really troubling for all of us is that the budget's going to be cut by about 10% this year. So the mayor is forced to make choices, which we were trying to give her input on, where to fund those budget cuts from, or how much to take away from the different agencies that comprise the DC government. So that's going to be a problem that we are all going to face in the next year. And I think everybody should be aware of that. The second thing is I got the Foxhall Community Citizens Association newsletter. And as you know, the Foxhall Community Citizens Association has been really active in monitoring the performance of the schools. And MacArthur High School had a 11% proficiency in math and 40% proficiency in English, which means that 89% of the students at MacArthur High School are not proficient in math and 60% are not in English. And that is just scary, I think. We need to look at that and see what we can do to improve those scores. And if we don't do that, nobody that has the ability to send a kid to private school or a charter school is ever going to send their kid there to this school, and it'll be a failure, and we don't want that to happen. And remember, I was the commissioner that sponsored the resolution to acquire the land for this, so I have a personal incentive to make sure that this school is performing up to the requirements of the DC government, and it's not right now, and that's just shocking to me.
Okay. Now we're at the point.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I just wanted to respond to my fellow commissioners' concern about the high school. This is a community asset that we need to be really concerned about. I wonder whether there's anything that the community can do to help those students raise their capabilities. I don't know, the first thing that occurs to me is some kind of tutoring that we could offer after school or whatever. I don't know. This is not my area of expertise in any sense, but it just seems to me this is an alarm bell for this community. It's not just a high school issue. This is our community. I think where if we want to keep this high school and have it be successful, what are we going to do? So I just wanted to raise that as an issue. I don't have a solution.
I spoke with the principal, and he said that one problem is that the transportation to the school is so horrific that students are spending way too much time on the bus getting there that they don't have time to study. And that's something that, I think we really need to look into, because that's a valid reason why students may not be performing to their expectation level, because they don't have enough time in their day to study. And we need to look at everything that we can do, every aspect of things that we can do to make sure that this is successful and doesn't fail, because right now, these are horrific numbers.
Am I correct that in May, the bus service will improve? Commissioner Duncan, you're more familiar with that than I am. The new, better bus, does it get better?
It depends on where they're coming from.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It adds a bus line from, let's say, if you're coming from Cleveland Park, like if you, what's the school that's up there? Is that Merch? I'm drawing a blank.
Park is,
Are you talking about Eaton or Merch?
Eaton.
That's
I
it.
think Eaton
So
would
if
be
you
the
live up
closer
near
one, yeah.
Eaton, you'll have a more direct route to the school. But if you're coming from, if you were taking the D6 all the way to the Stadium Armory, it won't necessarily be that much better.
Yeah, but Eaton is one of the feeder schools, is that right? Yeah.
It is.
And I wanted everybody to be clear. The principal was very responsive, and he's part of the solution, and I don't think he's part of the problem. So my dealings with him have been very good. It's just we have to do something.
Yeah, and I want to say about 25% of the kids there maybe have an IEP, an individual education plan. So you can't always expect those students to, be reaching the standards, but I agree. It's alarming, and perhaps there is something that we can do in terms of setting up a neighborhood tutoring program. That's actually not a bad idea. It's a good idea, Chuck. Commissioner Elkins.
Okay. We're on the community issues and concerns part now. If there are community members that want to speak about something that's not on the agenda, this would be the time to speak. Right after this, we're going to have discussion or presentation from the Consumer Protection Unit of the Department of Licensing, and then we're going to jump right into official actions. The first one being about 4632 Charleston Place. So, is there anyone who wants to speak about something that's not on the agenda? Seeing none, let's jump right to Ms. Richardson.
Good afternoon, everyone. Oh, it's my camera. I'm sorry, trying to get my camera to cut on. There we go. Good afternoon, everyone. How are you?
Very good, thank you.
Thank you so much for having me here at such late notice. I'm so grateful that you guys could find time for me. You guys' meetings are so well structured. I love how structured your meetings are. I go to a lot of ANC meetings and they're not this structured. This is great. I love this. But I'm Shakira Richardson. I'm one of the program managers from the Consumer Protection Unit at the Department of Licensing and Consumer Protection. I have a whole presentation, but I think I'll drop it in the chat because I know you guys have a pretty tight, I'm going to keep to you all's agenda, which I love. Our agency is tasked with ensuring that businesses, consumers, visitors to the district, they're protected. Consumers are protected, businesses are also protected. We also want to ensure that the economic growth of the district is inspired and catered to by our agency. So we have resources such as the Small Business Resource Center, where if you just have a concept in your mind about what type of business you would like to start or what grants are available to assist you, you can actually make an appointment and walk in. And we have individuals, real people, not like a computer, but like real people who will walk you through taking your dreams and bringing them into fruition through the licensing process, through just helping you find grants to start up your business, to help you locate a space, a brick and mortar space, or even find, if you want a food truck, help you find a food truck. They'll help you write your business plan. So we have so many resources because we encourage small business. We love small business. It's the heartbeat of our city. And we want more small businesses to thrive in our jurisdiction. We also I am tasked specifically with consumer advocacy for the district. We also have a consumer protection unit, which is comprised of nearly 30 investigators. And all we do every single day or receive consumer-related complaints related to businesses or related to occupational and professional licenses that are non-medical licenses. So let's say like general contractors. And I know with all of the construction in the city, I've heard everybody speak about construction. General contractors sometimes being licensed or unlicensed I'm trying to say this politically in a politically correct way, but they pose some issues and potential threats, and there's scams associated with these specific industries. Our job are to receive consumer complaints, mediate on behalf of the consumer, and hold the respondents accountable, rather if they're licensed or not. So if it's an electrician, if it's an architect, if you have we cover, again, it's over 125 different licensing types that we have oversight over. And also any business that you walk into. If you walk into a business and they're selling flavored tobacco, which has been outlawed in the district, you report that to us. We hold these people accountable, and they're pretty hefty fines. If they accrue a certain number of fines, we suspend, revoke their business licenses. So we know that tobacco is an issue, especially around our youth, and we want to prevent that. It's a public health concern. And so our goals are to ensure that the public is safe from, if you're any good or service that you're acquiring in the district, you're acquiring it as contracted and to the district code, because there's standards of operation for every profession, for every store type, for every business type. And my agency is specifically tasked with ensuring that people are held accountable. And if you are a business and if you have questions, if you need help with a license type, we're there to help you with that too, because our goal is always compliance over enforcement. Enforcement is us issuing a ticket. It does not solve the issue. Compliance ensures that there's government oversight. So there's a checklist of items that this person has gone through that that helps us ensure the safety of the consumers. So if you run into an unlicensed business, if you run into issues at a business, if you have questions about starting a business, we are here to assist you. And we have a 24-hour online complaint form. You can actually chat with us online. You can call us. You can walk in. We're pretty much always available. Our oversight is pretty extensive. Like we have oversight over vending in the district. And I know that nobody's happy with the vendors in the district, but we're working to try to encourage that small business, but we're encouraging those people to be in compliance. Some of our enforcement authority has been greatly diminished by the decriminalization of unlicensed vending, but we're working to, we've introduced some legislation to change that and to expand our enforcement authority, but to also give us some resources to help bring these potential business owners into compliance also, that are not necessarily based in enforcement. We don't want to just write tickets. We want people to come into compliance because that's what's ultimately going to protect the public. But if you have concerns about a contractor in your house, if you hire a contractor to perform work on your property and the work is not completed to code, or you're not happy with the work, if they run off with your money, if they lie to you, our job is to mediate on your behalf. And we're very successful with recovering consumers' funds. And if we can't recover the funds, We work with the Attorney General's office to file criminal charges against many of these individuals. So we're working very diligently, very hard to, number one, hear the concerns of the public. I don't think we're always aware because we're kind of just working. So we need to actually hear what your concerns are so that we can be of better service. And we also want to make sure that what we are providing is what meets the needs, the current needs of the district. So again, I'm Shakira Richardson. I'll drop all of my information in the chat as well as my PowerPoint and a one pager. I'm sorry, Commissioner, yes?
I have actually a question for you. I have a constituent that was scammed by a travel agency. What I'm gonna I'm gonna reach out to your group because I think that you might be able um to help. What authority are you all under? Like, if you find something fraudulent, do you work with the Attorney General's office? Are you guys able to um police these groups yourselves? Like, how does your agency, how is it structured that way?
Sure. So we have the codes that and regulations that lend us our authority. Specifically, is called the district's Consumer Protection Procedures Act. And it goes by CPPA. And that is a specific, very kind of broad, general set of consumer protection codes that dictate the practices of businesses and how businesses interact with consumers. It also provides us the ability to mediate on behalf of the consumer, and also allows us the ability to fine the business if they elect not to cooperate with us. It also allows us to then move forward with if the company is licensed, we can revoke or suspend their business license in the district. And if there's actual fraud, we work with the Attorney General's office and if it's an online business, the Federal Trade Commission to have the website removed from online and to pursue criminal charges if we can substantiate criminal activity.
Great.
So yes, please reach out to us because what we do very often is mediate on behalf of the consumer, reach out to the respondent, make them aware of who we are and what our authority is. And then they're more willing, it's a bit of an incentive to cooperate with us to make the consumer whole again. So yeah, please reach out to us.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
I'm very interested.
Commissioner Simkowitz.
Hi, Ms. Richardson. Commissioner Chuck Elkins and I, he's a member of our commission, worked on a task force to combat illegal contractors. And if I suggest that your department go out to a job site and just drive down the street and see a truck, and I can tell you that most of those trucks are not going to be licensed in DC. And I've complained about this for years, and nothing through a variety of administrations, a variety of directors at the former agency, and then when they split it off, the current one, and they've done nothing about this. And it's just really frustrating because not only are we not knowing whether these contractors meet the minimum quality level and insurance level, but they're stealing from the government because they're not paying their license fees, which are pretty extensive. So I had one license holder tell me, why in the world would I pay for a license if everybody gets away with not paying it at all?
Right, no, absolutely. So just recently, we were successful in some legislation that we proposed to ensure that there is an actual board of general contractors created, which will have dedicated investigators to doing just that, more what we call proactive inspections, not just complaint-based inspections.
Sure.
We also work with the Department of Buildings. They have what's called illegal construction. And when they find illegal construction, or if they're even questioning the construction, they pull us in. We go out and we go to the sites and we inspect and we ask to speak to the foreman. We review all their logs, we review their contracts. So that is something new thank you so much for that, because that's something that's growing and expanding. So your expertise is something that we would greatly love to work with you more.
Call me anytime. I mean, you.
Oh, awesome.
The other thing is, I don't think that your department handles landlord complaints for unlicensed rentals. Is that correct?
Yes, we do. Unlicensed rentals, yes.
So this is another thing, and I hate to complain because you're part of the solution, not part of the problem. But we have had in our neighborhood a lady who is a horrible landlord. She's hasn't been licensed in years, and I get a call one day that the tenants who were from another country. They were students from the French embassy. So these are 19-year-old kids who are living in another country, America, and they don't speak English as their native language. They called me and they said, hey, I heard you're the commissioner. I said, yeah, can you come down to our house? I went down to their house and their water was shut off because this lady always fails to do the right thing and fix leaks and stuff. And they said, what do we do? And I said, well, you need to call your department. And so I don't know if they did or not. And unfortunately, I could not, I didn't follow up because that, I gave them the information. So I don't know what they did. But this lady has gotten away with an unlicensed rental, not just in this house, but in other houses. I've reported it, and your department has never shut this woman down. And as a result, those poor kids had to take a shower in their next door neighbor's house, which is kind of creepy. Fortunately, the next door neighbor was nice and not creepy, but it's still a little weird.
Oh, absolutely. So thank you so much for that. So when we receive unlicensed rental complaints, we don't have right of entry, but what we do is we attempt to confirm that there are tenants and that there is no business license. And of course, we have access to our online database where all the licenses are stored. If that's confirmed, we issue fines, but then we also refer to the Department of Buildings for a property maintenance inspection to ensure that the property is habitable and safe and meets the district standards. The only issue we've been having with a lot of these properties, especially with newly arrived citizens to the district, when it's time for those inspections with DOB to enter the facility, they'll deny everyone entry because they are frightened of losing their housing, because housing is very expensive, as you're aware, in the district, and they're frightened of being displaced. But that is not an excuse. I would love if I can get that address from you, like offline, so that I can look into that.
Please send me an email, because just today I got an email that said, Dear Commissioner Simkowitz, on Wednesday today, DOB visited 47, I won't give the address, but was not able to access the property. And the reason why they're not able to access the property in this case, I suspect, is the people were at work. They're not home during the day, but there's definitely people there. And, we can't have this because we don't want to have another Kennedy Street fire, which, as you know, that was 2 people died in that fire.
Right.
The problems with the former agency, and we just don't want to have that. We can't have people die because of bad housing conditions. And if you're not licensed, the city has no idea what's going on inside that house.
Absolutely. So yeah, I was an
Commissioner Elkins
investigator.
and I have been really fighting this for years now, and we haven't seen very much progress, if any.
Right. So I appreciate those comments. I was actually an investigator with DCRA when the Kennedy Street fire occurred, and it was devastating to all of us. And there, the current criminal charge is pending against the owner based upon our investigation.
Well,
but it's too much, too little, too
pending.
late.
It's that he was found guilty.
Oh, he was. Okay. Well, that's great. But it's but that still doesn't bring back the lives that
bring
were
back
lost.
the 2 lives of the people, and those people were from the Ethiopian community.
Yes.
And, they may not have spoken English, and we have a duty to protect all citizens, whether they're legal or here undocumented, or they speak English. We have a duty to protect everybody, and we're not doing it today. So hopefully, you and I can work together and fight these bad people.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we have a language line that we use no matter what. When our investigators go out, they have to have the language line available to discuss with anybody. We're also working on an initiative called Safe Homes. And the Safe Homes initiative, you'll see there could be commercials, they're going to be email blasts, they're going to be social media posts from the agency that focuses on specifically how, when individuals are interested in renting a property, what they need to look for to ensure that the property is properly licensed. And we're also currently, and for the last 6 months, been completing what's called proactive inspections of licensed facilities. So what we do is we comb our website for every investigation, every complaint we've received for unlicensed rental activity in the district for the last 5 years. And we also comb the database for every previously licensed rental facility in the district for the last 5 years. And it came back with like a couple 100,000 entries. And our investigators are assigned cases daily, that they're responsible for contacting the owner to ensure licensure has been acquired. And if not, they're assigned to an account manager. Once we get in contact with the owner, they're assigned to an account manager to walk them through the licensing process to ensure compliance. Because again, compliance is what's going to solve the safety issues, not enforcement. So, and if that does not work, then we move to enforcement, which is the issuance of, monetary fines. And if we get a certain number of those fines, we move forward with working with the Attorney General's office. I know you all have maybe seen the Attorney General is working on a case against a man, last name Rajunian. He's like a slumlord, a pervasive slumlord in the district. That case is as a result of our proactive findings that we handed over to the Attorney General's office. So we're very passionate about ensuring safe homes for all of our citizens, newly arrived or like myself, native born. So we want to make sure, I'm really looking forward to working with you because this is something I'm extremely passionate about. So I will email you following this.
I already sent you an email. So
Oh, you're
we'll
already
connect.
ahead of it. I appreciate you so much.
I don't mess around. You give me a call tomorrow and we'll get this thing, we'll get these 2 houses fixed. That'll be our test case. And
Absolutely.
we got to shut this woman down. She's evil.
I agree. And I thank you all so much for allowing me to be here this evening. I'm looking forward to your email and I will be in contact with you first thing in the morning. And thank you guys so much. I appreciate you.
Commissioner Elkins, you have a question?
I had a real quick question. Where I know we need to move ahead on the agenda, but my experience is several years ago, but in trying to identify whether people actually have a license or not, I would go into the, I guess, ECRA database, and I was never able to be sure that these people didn't have a license because maybe their truck says that they are the Smith Construction Company, but then they may be registered with you as the group 3 of such and such. Is there a way for me to, and others here, just to send you the name that's on the truck and have you look, because I'm sure you're able to look a lot better than I am about these people are actually licensed or not. I mean, I'm
Absolutely.
the idea of having these people licensed. So we can just send you the name and or is there a form or something we should fill out, or?
You can send them, you can email me directly. I'll put my direct email as well as cell phone number in the chat. So you'll be able to contact me, and I'm constantly at work, like always. So you can contact me directly, and I'll be, again, I do have more access to our database than you do. So yeah, please send them my way. And if we can confirm that they're not licensed, we'll get somebody out there the next day.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you all so much. We need this feedback because we're just.
Questions? Any other questions? No, that was very good, and we really appreciate it.
Appreciate you all also. Thank you so very much. I'll be dropping the information in the chat.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Let's move to official actions. We're going to go to BZA case that's about 4632 Charleston Place. Commissioner Nowak, do you want to set this up, or do you want Mr. Sullivan to explain, what this is about? It's up to you.
I am happy to get it started, and then I'm happy to hand off to Mr. Sullivan. So the applicant lives at 4632 Charleston Terrace. There is an existing deck which the homeowner would like to rebuild, this time with a roof covering the area of the deck to provide some sun protection. There are several exceptions that will be required, and I'll let Mr. Sullivan speak to those. And I am not proposing a motion yay or nay at this point. My motion to the commission would be to just open it up for discussion, and then we can decide as a group what we want to do at the conclusion of that.
Very good. All right, Mr. Sullivan, do you have a presentation for us?
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Horn. I do. If I could share it. And Susan Tamarini, the owner, is with us as well, and Tony Darrow is the architect.
Hello.
So I'll start it.
Good evening, everyone.
Okay, so here's an overview. Replacing the existing deck and with a larger covered deck. For zoning purposes, this is kind of unusual. Because there's a roof on the deck, it's considered an accessory structure as opposed to just a continuation of the footprint of the house. That's a little different, and we got the zoning administrator to confirm that. So that kind of changes the relief. 3 areas of relief. One, the accessory structure deck is in the required rear yard. So it needs relief from that provision. That's one of the provisions that the zoning commission amendment that was scratched off the agenda is supposedly going to remove. And then because the deck will be covered, it'll count against lot occupancy. The maximum matter of right is 40%. This would be proposed to 49.3%. So asking special exception relief for that. And then there's an accessory structure footprint requirement specifically for accessory structures of 450 square feet, asking for a special exception from that. All the criteria from the BZA for all 3 areas of relief are the same. It's the light and air privacy test. Regarding light and air, we have a shadow study at the end of this. And the deck's open on all sides as well, too, under the roof. Regarding privacy, there's 3 windows on the building facing north, on the condo building to the south, and the architect will show you in his plan. Now, 2 of those windows are well below the floor level of the deck, and the other window is actually not adjacent to this property. Susan's going to have planters in the back there too for added privacy. And it's not visible from any public way, so it won't substantially visually intrude on character, scale, and pattern of houses. And so I think Susan would like to introduce the project first before we turn it over to Tony to show you the plans. Susan?
Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm glad to meet everyone, and thank you for considering my request, and thank you for your service. I haven't really been part of these meetings before, but it's been very interesting. I might do it again. Anyway, as you can see, the property here, that's the back, and that's where the old deck is now and where the new deck is about to be, and I hope. Anyway, the overall goal for me to do these modifications is to age in place. My significant other and myself would like to, I'm 76, so, you know, things happen. So anyway, yeah, if you go back maybe to the one before this, yeah. And yeah, the one after that, you can see how steep the hill is there. And what I'm trying to do is eliminate the steps. There are about 6 steps there, and they kind of twist around. And there's a layer on top there. And then you go down the steps, and there's another section of the deck. And right now, you can go back to that again. Right now, I don't really ever use the bottom of this deck because it's just so hot down there. It's a southwest facing, and you can't really go out there in the daytime in July and August. And so now when we do go out in the evening, we just use the top, that little, you know, chairs and table up on top because it has an umbrella and it's, you know, has a tree there and that brick wall, and it provides us some protection from the sun. Both of us have problems with basal cell, and so we've been told by our dermatologist many times not to go out in the sun, and so we really would like to go outside. So that's what I'm trying to do with that part of it. And you know, due to the space and everything of this deck, it's kind of difficult to. We have limitations on what we can really do, but this garden here used to be a deck. When the house was built, the garden plus the deck that's there now was all deck. And there was a hot tub in this part, and my late husband couldn't really use it anymore. So we just decided to get rid of that part of the deck and put that garden in there, and also have steps so that, you know, it kind of prevents erosion, which, you know, I'm interested in doing in all of this really. So we don't really use that garden anymore. But the new deck would come over that, and I would probably keep those steps in there underneath so that, we prevent erosion. I'm going to probably put a step on the other side too to make sure that happens. Okay, I think that's all I have to say about that one. And this just shows my neighbor on the other side, and they have provided a letter of support, and I've gone over and showed them all of the plans and everything, and they're, happy to support the project. And let's see what else. And mainly it's protection from the sun, and also the steps, which would be dangerous. And we can actually, if you want to go back maybe to one of those other, this is good. The way it is now, we really only stay in that top section, and then the grill is down below, and so we go up and down the steps, and carry things, food and plates and whatnot. And, it could become dangerous at some point. And mostly, I can do it now, but I do have rheumatoid arthritis. And if I have a flare up, and if it's in my hips or my knees or my feet, it, creates problems for me to do that. So, that's why I'm trying to just make it all one level and, be safe and comfortable for us to use. Okay, I think that's all for that.
Okay, I'll have Tony, do you want to take through the plans briefly?
Sure. Yes, good evening, everyone. I'm Tony Darrow of Aperture Architecture, and I'm working for Susan to develop a design. We worked together to come up with this design that would meet her needs in terms of aging in place and the protection from the sun. So it's an open structure on all sides, and the Office of Planning had requested this drawing they had some concerns about privacy to the building to the south. And there are three windows, as Marty mentioned earlier, but this drawing shows that, or the previous drawing shows that the floor
Sorry,
of the deck,
I'm just trying to zoom in on that. Oh, here it is.
Yeah, there it is. Yes. Yeah, we're just showing that the deck is above the windows, so there's no direct line of sight into any window, and you can see that in the section above the longitudinal section. That's the brick in the background is the building to the south. So there are really no changes to the privacy of the surrounding properties. And this one was requested by the ANC to show the existing deck with an overlay of the new deck, so you can see the existing deck in black outline, and the dashed yellowish line is the new deck. And this is a side view from the east side, and an overhead shot there.
This one shows the planters in the back as well. I'm sorry.
It looks like you have like the roof sloping down on one side and the roof sloping down on the other side. Is there a gap in between? What is
there? Yes, there is a gap in between. Yes, to let some more light in, and it might be an opportunity for growing vines, that type of thing, if there was additional shading needed. But yes, we didn't want to cast too much shadow on the existing doors or windows, so we tried to leave an open slot.
So that's sort of like the pergola part, in other words.
Correct, yes.
And then you said that in your BZA documents at the beginning that you're at 49% lot coverage. Is there a lot more lot in the front yard?
When you say a lot more lot in the front yard,
it said that you're going to be covering 49% of the lot.
Yes, that includes the side yards, the front yard, and we're not entirely covering the rear yard. There's still some open space in the back there as well.
Okay.
We have to be exact on that, of course. We you can't get away with that one. So it's got to be right.
And then the rear, am I looking at a condo building behind you? Or is that a house?
It's a condo building.
Okay.
There's a group of them back there. This would be, let me see, this is another, here you can see the condo buildings
Yeah,
back here.
okay, okay.
So, let me ask this.
We didn't get, I'm sorry, we had shadow studies at the end there too, if you want us to
Oh,
show you
yeah.
that real
Yeah,
quick.
keep going.
Sorry, these are all different size. I don't know why that's coming up like that. So here they are. This, we just did as if no deck was there. We didn't go from existing deck to new deck. It's just no deck to deck. And the area highlighted is additional shadow resulting from the deck. This is 9 o'clock spring fall. And then 12 and 3. And then in the summer, see the additional shadow and 12 and 3. And then winter, 9 a.m. And then of course, and this is all like on the first level, the shadow, because the see, you can tell from this, it's only going to cast shadow on the lower level there. That's it.
Okay. Well, let me ask this. So, if it was a deck without a roof, then it wouldn't be a problem, right? It's the roof that makes this a BZA problem.
It would be a different problem. It would still, it would require rear yard special exception and side yard special exception, actually, because it would be considered like a continuation of the house. And this is something I can't point to where that is in the regs. There's a bit of a, I would say there's a little bit of a hole in the regs, but typically a deck is considered an extension of the house when it's regarding the side yard requirement and where the rear of your building starts for calculating the rear yard requirement. So if you have a house and an open deck without a roof, at the end of that deck, you need 25 feet in order to meet your rear yard requirement. In this case, because it's roofed, they call it an accessory structure. And accessory structures themselves don't have rear yard requirements. They can be in a rear yard. They don't have side yard requirements. But they do have this requirement that it can't be in the required rear yard, which is the first 25 feet from the house back. And so this is obviously squarely in the required rear yard. So we would need 2 areas of relief. We wouldn't need the lot occupancy relief because I think we would be less than 4 feet above the grade there. Although a part of that might count too. We might need all 3 areas of relief, actually. The lot occupancy, rear yard and side yard, instead of accessory building footprint, accessory building in the required rear yard and lot occupancy. And another thing that's different, if we didn't have the roof, there's no limit on the footprint because it's not an accessory structure. I hope that didn't confuse.
The zoning requirements are often confusing. Oh, yes. Okay.
I agree.
So, Elkins?
Mr. Sullivan, could you tell me what the reaction of the neighbors are? Looking still at that picture that you have there, we have the white building, and then we have the house on the other side, and then we have the gray building. What are the reactions of those 3 sets of neighbors?
Commissioner Elkins, we have the neighbor from the brown building on the call. She's going to present shortly.
For the brown building.
For the brown building.
Okay.
And the white building, Marty, I'm sorry, I don't mean to answer for you, but I know that Ms. James wants to present, so I don't want us to jump ahead to that until we get through commissioner questions. And then the white building has sent in a letter of support. Is that right, Mr. Sullivan?
Yes, that's correct. We have letter of support from the white building and then from 4625. Charleston Terrace.
But I'm sorry, I missed, what about the gray building? That's later in the presentation or what, Ms. Nowak?
Oh, no,
The,
from
the
this one, no,
brown
we don't have
building, the
anything.
second brown building to the left.
Yes.
A homeowner is here and would like to speak. The brown building, we do not have representation. I'm sorry, the condo building does not have representation here unless somebody raises their hands and tells me otherwise, but I have not heard from anybody in the condo building.
Have we asked them?
Yeah, and excuse me, but I did send a letter to, but there's 2 condos in that first building. And I did send a letter to them explaining what I was going to do and, you know, giving them my phone number and, you know, everything, and if they wanted to contact me. And no one has contacted me.
And how long ago was that?
I want to say 2 weeks maybe, or a little bit longer.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Noah?
Yeah, thank you. I have a number of questions just from reading the plans that I'm not an expert at this, so you're going to have to help me understand some of what we saw. So in this drawing, actually, can we go to the one that has the current footprint of the deck and then the overlay of the new deck, the dimensions? Yeah, so this is great. If we could zoom in just a little bit so we can see those lines. One question I have is, so where'd it go?
Sorry, I'm struggling to zoom here.
Okay.
There we go.
So the orange rectangle-ish is the new footprint. And so I guess my first question is it a rectangle with a second sort of, does it connect to the house or is it separated from the house completely?
It's separated from the house completely.
So how will the homeowners get to the deck?
Well, there's a platform. When you say not connected, I know this is, I think part of it is a zoning term, but there's a platform when you walk out the back door, and yeah, this would show it. Yeah, you can see the little platform. You know, that's not technically attached to the house. Nothing is attached to the house, but it is there as a connection point to the covered areas.
Okay, all right, thank you. And in terms of the current deck versus the existing, the current deck and the existing sliding door, there seems to be a step down. Are you proposing that the new deck would be raised to be level with the sliding door?
Yes, that was for one of Susan's requests to age in place and to eliminate all the steps. It also makes for a nicer transition from, it connects the interior space to the exterior space in a much better way. It becomes more of a part of the house as you're, at least in terms of the feeling that it gives you.
Okay. Back on the drawing about the footprint, well, this one actually works as well. So the existing deck, I think on the left-hand side is, well, we know on the left-hand side it's substantially in setback from the house, from the west side of the house, but the new deck extends wider than the house. Can you speak to us about that? While on the east side, it does say basically close to flush with the line of the house.
Yes, that the space on the west side of the existing deck, that the part that we're filling in, is really much steeper than the east side. So it makes sense to, yeah, the east side is still somewhat navigable with steps that aren't too steep, but on the other side they are, yeah, it's much steeper there, or it's steeper, I should say. There's some retaining walls on the east side as well that kind of retain the earth, but yeah, that's one of the reasons. That was kind of a natural area to extend the deck because it was less usable. or steeper.
So on the west side, are you seeking relief from setback from the neighbor's yard on the west side?
So
I'll let-
that doesn't require relief. Because it's considered an accessory structure, there's no side yard requirement.
Got it. And at the new roof that's being proposed, what's the height at the top of the roof, at the highest peak of the roof?
Marty, it's there. It's about 11 feet 3 inches. It's in the longitudinal section there. It's number
Yeah.
2. I believe it's 11 foot 3 inches.
And what
Yeah.
is it on the it slopes down, what does it go to on the corners?
8 feet 3 inches.
And how high is the sliding door? Is that about 8 feet, I'm guessing?
Yeah, that is 84 inches, I believe. 7 feet.
Okay.
So the idea was to keep, Susan didn't want a very tall structure because we're keeping it under the windows is basically what we're doing. So that roof is the minimum slope you're allowed for shingled roofs. And so that's what that's how that angle came about.
Okay, so in order to have 8 feet on the sides, you need to go up to 11. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
Yes, yeah, yes. And at the sides, that's 8 feet 3 inches to the very top of the roof. So by the time you add the structure of the roof and the additional structure, where the actual usable headroom is probably around 7 feet, which is
got it.
About the minimum that you would want, even by code standards.
Okay, I think those are all my questions for now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Duncan?
Looking at, can you go to the overhead view again? I'm just trying to orient myself to the actual photographs. Where the steps were leading down in sort of the garden area. Can you run your cursor over to where that is? I'm just trying to orient myself.
On this one?
Yeah, on this
Commissioner?
one. Yeah. Like those steps that were going down, like in the area where the hot tub used to be.
Yeah, that's
Are they on the west side?
That's on the west side. The one to the left, the roof to the left. Yeah, that's the area that the steps are going down.
So the stairs would be right there about where your hand,
No,
the little
I
cursor
think
hand
the
is?
left side is where the terraces are today, and on
Yeah,
this
okay.
vision, the right side is where the steps were,
Oh,
the like flagstone type steps.
Yeah, okay. That's what I was asking.
okay.
So did you make this, wider than the house to basically use the entire sort of backyard area and sort of, make it flat and more usable?
That was part of it. Yes, that
Seems
was
really wide.
it was designed to accommodate the space that Susan needed.
Okay. And then you would leave that structure underneath to help with stormwater.
Correct. Yes. Yeah, we're very aware of erosion and want to prevent the erosion. So we're going to do she's got a dry well in the back, so all the gutters will be piped to the well to prevent any erosion or to minimize it.
All right, those are the only questions I had.
Okay. If there are no more commissioner questions, I'd like to go to Ms. James.
Hello?
Hello?
Can you hear me?
Yes?
Okay, can you see me now? I actually took off, let's see. With my lights, maybe you can't. Maybe
No, we can see you.
Okay, let me
We
just
can
turn
see
the
you,
light
yeah.
off. Maybe you'll see me better. Maybe that was, there was just some glare. Okay, okay. So yeah, so I'm Susan's neighbor. I'm the house that was the identical house. If you saw in the picture, the two houses are identical. I want to start by saying I'm not happy having to object. Susan is a nice person. She's a good neighbor. We've been neighbors since I moved here. That is, she was an original owner. That is, she's someone I certainly don't want to be objecting to. And I like in concept. I understand perfectly. She wants to age in place. It makes sense to me. And I also want to make clear I don't object at all to her expanding the deck. The deck, as far as I'm concerned, she can expand the deck as large as she wants. My concern, and I've raised it in a series of emails to her. I really tried to communicate with her and propose possible solutions, and only reached the point that I had to object when I realized we weren't going to reach a solution and time was ticking away. So my concern is entirely with that roof that hits exactly at this point of visibility from my sunroom. So if you look at the pictures, you see I've got this big sunroom that's an original sunroom that is these two houses are sister houses. They have the same basic floor plan. And that sunroom has been there from the beginning. My feeling is that we are small, tight, in-city lots where, of course, we see our neighbors, and therefore the amount of space that remains is valuable, and there's a reason that it's still there. So from my sunroom in the design at the height that she's looking to put the roof, that is what you see. My house is a little lower on the slope than hers, so my sunroom hits at a level so that at the height she's looking to put that roof, that's exactly what you're going to see. It's the dominant thing that you're going to see that's going to take over her whole backyard on my side, as you've been looking at in the designs, and you see it will tilt towards my side. This roof will go beyond the set-off limits, as I understand it, because accessory structures do not have set-off limits, because a true accessory structure, as was I think just pointed out, is actually supposed to be at least 25 feet beyond the house. So I think the rationale for why normally a true accessory structure doesn't have to be concerned about set-off is it's 25 feet away. So not a big thing to talk about a set-off, the set-off, the distance from the property line with the neighbor. The set-off, putting an accessory, calling this an accessory structure when it isn't 25 feet away, suddenly putting this thing so that it's even closer to my house, this roof, than even her house is, and will cover her whole backyard, so that is what is going to be in my face from my sunroom. That's the issue that I've raised. So so they need indeed several exceptions to do this. As has been raised, the question is it really even separate from their main structure? They go very close to the main structure, in contrast to the 25 feet away that normally an accessory structure will be. This is 18 inches, as I understand it, from their main structure. Their lot occupancy goes to just a hair under 50% occupancy, all of it contained in this corner of her backyard that's right practically edging onto my property. And then the third exception is they're making this a particularly large accessory structure, so that normally an accessory structure can go up to 450 square feet. They want this 44% larger at 652 square feet. Plus you have the 40 feet on that 18 inches. So that is, as we talked about, that they've got that little bridge space between the house and the portion of the deck that's under the roof. So really it's 692 square feet, I think, of continuous deck, which the deck I'm fine with. They can do anything they want with the deck, but it ends up with this roof that's 652 square feet, right in the line of vision of what remains of open space onto my sunroom. So I raise it as a personal issue for me in this case. I also raise it as a policy issue. Zoning rules are there for a reason. owners are supposed to be aware of this when you get the house, that there are zoning rules. You can ask for certain exceptions, but I raise it as a question. There's my particular case, and I raise it as a question as a policy issue. Is this really in harmony with the zoning rules for these tight, close-in city lots? So I feel that there's the concern of my particular case, and I feel there's a broader policy issue. I've proposed a solution, which I view as a compromise solution, because it would enable Susan to do pretty much what she's looking to do, and that's to build everything 2 feet lower. And frankly, that would make a very big difference for me, because then, of course, I would still see the roof, but then I could also clearly see over the roof. You'd still have this giant roof. You'd still have practically her whole backyard tending towards my side, covered by structure, by this roof. But it would make a very big difference from how I would see this from my sunroom, and in turn from my kitchen and living room, which draw in that direction on the very dominant, that is the very prominent windows in the sunroom, therefore become windows that you see so prominently from the kitchen and living room as well. I also would like just to mention, indeed, that structure, the apartments that are behind the property. It is true that the closest windows to her property are just below, but certainly light and air are going to come down from where this roof is going to be from much higher above. That's interesting that Susan says she's written to the two, if I understood, to the owners of those particular condos that are facing. I mean, that's good if she did that, because indeed, I've certainly had the concern that in that apartment building, they may not even be aware that Charleston Terrace is that street up there. That is a more general notice. If they got it, they might not have even been aware that this structure that's being proposed is in that house right above me right there. So maybe Susan has done more research on reach out in that regard. But I think that in a nutshell is my concern. Do we really, in my particular case, is it really fair to me for her to put 652 square feet of new roof right at my line of division from my sunroom? And the broader policy issue, is this really the way we mean to use exceptions to the zoning rules? Is this really, if you need 3 substantial exceptions to create an accessory structure that isn't positioned at all the way it's envisioned an accessory structure is to be positioned, that is, our properties sizes are really not designed to have accessory structures, I think. Is this really the way we want to be going? I would be curious to know, because I really don't know the answer to this. Are there other structures already? I mean, is this a pattern we've already followed down so that this is a kind of exception that is regularly made? Are there currently structures like this that go so close to the main structure and press so far out to the property line with the adjacent property? Is this something that's been done before? I'm just curious about that. As you cannot, given the position, you don't see it from the street, driving down the street. This is all in the back. You can't just drive down the street and say, that's a house that has that. So I'm curious if the ANC knows, or if
Ms. James?
Yes.
I'm just going to interject because I have some questions, but I can answer your question. Most BZA applications that come before us have 2 or 3 things that they ask for in one application. It's like if you need it for something, we have really wonky lots. Every single BZA case that I have seen is a case-by-case basis. So your case is very unique unto itself. But in another case, there certainly could be some of this relief that is granted. But that's neither here nor there. I have some questions about your sunroom and where it is in relationship to this house. Because you guys are on these steep lots. It seems like the hill goes down when you're on the back of your lot, you have a sloping hill down also, correct?
Yes, and it also
So-
slopes down in a way that my house ends up being a bit lower than her house. I did
Okay,
send
so we just, I need to understand this so I can see, I just need to understand how this is going to impact you. So if you're
Yeah.
sitting in your sunroom
Yeah,
and this, let's say this deck is built as is, are
yeah.
you looking, are you looking down on the roof? Are you looking sort of up at the roof? I'm trying to, if your house is a little bit lower,
Yeah.
right now you're looking down on the sort of the terraced steps. And then there's gonna, like, tell me exactly what you're gonna be seeing from your sunroom?
I did send pictures to Commissioner Nowak. I also sent them to you, but I don't know whether you got them. I sent my original message and I also sent some pictures.
I'm pulling them up right now.
You see them? This would be last week, Wednesday, Thursday.
Okay.
I can
Commissioner Elkins
share
also-
my screen.
Commissioner Elkins has a question too. I'm gonna look these up.
Okay.
Sorry, having trouble with my equipment here. Mr. Sullivan, you and I have dealt with each other for many years. And you may remember, but almost every time I ask you, what do the neighbors think? And I have to tell you that I think in this case, you've been very creative to be able to put the structure on this tiny lot. But to me, this is a case where you need to go back to the drawing board. I really think that this lot is not really made for an accessory structure. And if it's going to have an impact on neighbors, I think I have to say, I just don't think there's been enough discussion here with the neighbors. You sent a letter to the 2 condo people, but you haven't reached out to them and knocked on their door. And now we have one neighbor who is raising what I believe are issues that ought to be dealt with. And I think Commissioner Duncan can continue asking about, and I'm not trying to interrupt her questions about how this looks from the neighbors, but I just think that I just have to tell you, my conclusion is you need to go back to the drawing board.
So I pulled up the pictures. I mean, I can see how close the houses are here. And if this structure is going to be closer to your house, then because it's wider than.
So this that I'm showing now is the view from Miss James' sunroom. So Marty or Tony, can you please talk to us about, just give us some context on this photo and where the roof would be in the new design?
Yes,
and-
I
and
can.
how-
I can tell you where the roof, the window. So we're looking at Susan's house, and we see the woods vertical siding there, and there's a window, and the roof will be, that's the peak of the roof at the bottom
So
of that window.
So the peak of the roof will be right here?
Approximately,
Ish?
yeah, just below that, yes.
Okay, so maybe
And-
around here. Okay.
And then you see the steps on the ground, that you see 2 pieces of slate there. So we're about maybe a foot or 2 in towards Susan's house, and so it would fill that area right in there. That's where it would be filled. So you can.
So it would come out this way, right? So it would kind of
Yes.
traverse the existing terraces.
Yes, that's right. So the other thing to note is in the distance you can see Susan has an existing pergola that is at the,
that's over here.
Yeah, right there. So the new roof will be maybe 2 feet higher than that from the view, although it will be a little closer. The peak is at the center of Susan's house, so it's as far away as we could make it from the property line.
Can I say something?
D- Any commissioners have comments before we go back to Ms. James?
I'm sorry, say that again.
Yeah, let's let commissioners say something before we
Okay,
go
sure,
back
sure,
to
sure,
you.
sure.
Yeah, Commissioner Simkowitz.
Hi, I was struck with Mrs. James' comment that zoning rules are there for a reason, and I can't support this thing. I mean, I think that I would ask all of my fellow commissioners, would you want this next door to you? And I suspect the answer for every single one of us is no, no way. But I don't always win on this issue. In fact, I lose 6-1 a lot, especially with that one on MacArthur Boulevard, where 19 units were put in where we used to have only 2. So who knows what's going to happen here? But my comment is that I can't support this thing.
I'd like to add that, I'm uncomfortable with the roof, with a permanent roof for the purpose of shielding from the sun. I mean, because that's the argument here that sun skin cancer. As someone who is himself susceptible to it, there's lots of ways to cover up from the sun, including roofs that are not permanent. Not just umbrellas, but you could have quite a cloth roof that would not require any BZA approval, and it wouldn't even be there when you don't need it for the sun. The sun's a problem only a part of the year. It just seems over the top. Does any other commissioner have a question? Or shall I go back to Ms. James, who wanted to add? And then we'll go back, of course, to Mr. Sullivan and Mr. Darrow if they want to come back.
I mean, I'd be happy to hear other commissioners' comments.
All right, I think Mr. Sullivan, you want to respond to the commissioner's concerns or have someone else do that?
Sure. I'll be brief. I respect all of your opinions on this. I think if we're following zoning rules, the zoning rules include the ability to ask for a special exception with certain limits. And so we're asking for special exceptions all within the limits. That's 50% lot occupancy. And there's rules for special exception. It's whether or not a neighbor's light and air is unduly impacted, whether their privacy is unduly compromised. Now, those are really the two things because you can't see it from the street. So the third prong doesn't matter. Susan wasn't talking about the sun as a reason why she's entitled to the relief. That was just a reason why she was designing it this way. So, because that doesn't matter to the BZA. If we're also following zoning rules, I'm sure commissioners are aware the BZA regularly states that nobody's entitled to a view across another's property. And light and air doesn't refer to view and what you see when you look at a structure. It refers to the impact on shadow. And the shadow study showed minimal impact, certainly not what the board would consider undue. So I understand you want everybody to agree. And Susan, and she can talk about this, Susan and Miss James did have back and forth, and they talked about it. It's just too difficult, it makes the project not worth it to lower the deck or the roof. And so they designed something and then came to me and I advised them this is something that fits within what the BZA regularly approves because it's within the standards of light and air and privacy. So I know that sometimes the ANC has other considerations and I get that, but if we were following zoning rules, I would just like to lay that out there.
Can I make a comment to that?
Sure, unless the commissioner has something to say. Yes, Mr. Simkowitz.
Mr. Sullivan, would you want this next to your house?
hypothetical and irrelevant, Commissioner.
But I understand.
But I'm not,
your
I'm
answer.
actually, yes, I'm in favor of people being able to do stuff with their property. Yeah,
No, but would
I don't
you-
begrudge anyone the right to use their property in a reasonable way. So
If you were living in Mrs. James' house, would you want to look at this thing?
I don't think it would make a difference to me, frankly.
And I'll
If
ask
you-
the same question for the applicant.
Are you talking to me?
She
Yes.
looks at an addition next door. That's lot that goes beyond her building.
I mean, actually, looking out my living room window there, you know, that condo comes up to halfway, you know, my living room window. So I have to have my drapes open from the top. I mean, it's just a neighborhood where there are a lot of buildings. It's in a city. You know, you have other positive factors about being in a city. You're near things. You can take Uber places. You can see a lot of people. But maybe you don't
But
have.
I'm asking you
on the
about
way,
this,
you know?
this specific project. Would you want to look at this if you lived in your neighbor's house?
It wouldn't bother me. I mean, I can, you know, it wouldn't bother me. I mean, my neighbors on the other side, as you notice, have a double deck, and it's right next to my house. So that's, you know, that's just the way it goes in the city. I mean, you just, you know, I don't know what else to say. I mean, there are a lot of buildings around there. I mean, it's not a lot of open space there. There are trees, which is nice, but
Exactly.
there's really not any actual really views around there. It's a city. It's a cityscape.
Miss Tamburini, your neighbors on the other side, that house was built after you moved in, or was it renovated to its current size?
It was built after I moved in. I moved in 1984. And
did you object at that time to
No.
their building? Yeah.
I did not.
Okay. Any other commissioners? Yeah.
I just have one question. Was there ever a thought of, you know, making the deck the same width as the house? Like, was there a reason you bumped it out?
Well, the original deck, when the house was first built, was the same size of deck. And,
Oh, okay.
you know, yeah.
There was a deck there before, so that's
Yeah. And I
okay.
was going to say something now about it, and I don't know what it was. This is age. Yeah, I don't know what if I think of it. But you know, I know what. Yes, we had several emails between myself and Deborah, and she had raised these questions, and so I had Tony draw up, you know, a couple of things to try to lower it. But the way the property is, if you wanted to go straight out from the house, you can't. You know, there are limitations. You really can't do it in having enough headroom, you know, to stand up there. So we did. He even did a drawing because she mentioned maybe ramps. So I had him do a drawing of ramps, and so you know we looked at that, and it added 35 feet to getting out to the deck because you had to, you know, the way the ADA regulations are, you have to only have it, you know, so wide or whatever, so long. So you have to walk one way and then you have to turn around and walk the other way. And it's 35 feet, and it took up 100 square feet of the deck. So, you know, and plus which then it would make it worse to actually bring things out to the deck because you'd have to go 35 feet before you even got anywhere. So we did try to do something, but just the way that property is, if you want to have a deck with no steps and you want to be able to stand up, you know, that's pretty much, you know, how you have to do it. I mean, Tony can talk about this more than, you know, I can, but, you know, we did talk about it and he did try to do something, but it doesn't work.
Yeah, well, for a ramp, you need, for every foot of drop, you need 12 feet of ramp. So you need at least 24 feet, plus you need a landing, which will add approximately another 5 feet or so. It's, you know, but it ends up to about 35 feet by the time you ramp down and then ramp back. And it takes up a lot of space. It's a lot of extra cost, and it's not usable space. So it's pretty difficult on a site with that much slope to ramp it.
Commissioner Nowak?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions for Miss James. Deborah, good to see you again. One of the things I didn't think to ask you yesterday, you had indicated that you had asked your neighbor to lower the roof by 2 feet. I'm struggling in my mind to see how that substantially changes your experience of the structure, because you'll be in your sunroom and you'll still be looking down at a roof. So can you talk to us a little bit about your thought as to if the objection is to the fact that the backyard is now dominated by a roof, does it matter whether it's higher or lower?
Yeah, I mean, as I've said, I see that as a compromise solution. I mean, as has been pointed out, I'm going to have this big structure there. So seriously, in trying to work through with Susan, so how she could do this, she wants this. I was thinking, well, what is the level that this could be that I would still see it, but I would see over it enough that I would accept that. So that was a solution. I saw it as a compromise. So indeed, if you look at the pictures, and as I saw it, if the absolute peak of the roof came to that point on the picture where the brick stops, there's a point at the corner where the brick stops and you start having the wood siding. I felt that if the absolute peak came to that point and no higher, I thought, okay, I'll see the roof, but I will clearly see over it. And I saw that as a compromise. Indeed, I didn't see that as, well, that's perfect, but I did see that as a compromise. I do want to make a couple of comments to what's been said. Indeed, as has been pointed out, these are tight lots, and that's absolutely right. You look in different directions, you see other properties, and that's exactly why the remaining open space is meant to be there. That's why zoning rules create certain limits that, yes, under certain circumstances, you ask for exceptions. But this is a property that no way could accommodate a real accessory structure. As has been said, a real accessory structure is supposed to be at least 25 feet out, and that's what enables you, even with an accessory structure, not to be concerned with set off, because it's so far away that then it's sort of the issue of setback is no longer even an issue. And as far as the number of feet it's going to take to create a ramp, remember that she's looking to create a deck, and as I've said before, just she can create all. I have no
I
problem.
think that we shouldn't spend time talking about a ramp. The homeowner doesn't want a ramp, so I don't think we need to bother talking about that.
And I think we need to hear from Commissioner Elkins, and I think we've heard quite a bit here.
Yes, I just want to conclude. I think the real issue here is whether this should be an accessory structure or whether it should be a deck. It seems to me the compromise here is really, as Commissioner Horn has suggested, that there are other ways to provide shade to prevent the exposure to the sun. Obviously, an example is a retractable awning that would be pulled back to the house whenever the deck was not being used. I think it would be hard for the neighbor, Ms. James, to object to a deck. I think it's the roof that is really the problem. It's a roof. It's an accessory structure. It's not 25 feet away or away from the house. I think, yes, Mr. Sullivan, you have stayed within the zoning. I never wanted to imply you weren't within the rules. I know you play within the rules, and I didn't mean to imply otherwise. But I think this is, in my view, is not appropriate in terms of impact on the neighbor.
Okay, any other commissioners have something to say? Because I think we are.
I know, and I hate to belabor this because I'm not sure that people have a right to a view. Both of my neighbors and myself have done a number of things that significantly changed the view of all of our yards. So I am sensitive to that. It was everybody sort of did it, so it was congenial. But in terms of like the lot coverage, is there like a drainage plan here for roofing all of that and diverting the stormwater runoff? Is that part of this project? Maybe that's a question for the architect.
Yes, yes, there's in the eastern lower part of the property, there's a dry well, and Susan can talk more about it if you need more detail, but yeah, we would
No,
pipe
I just,
into.
so you're going to capture the
Oh, yeah.
stormwater runoff?
Yeah, we're getting,
You'll
yeah,
have a
Susan,
gutter coming from or a downspout off the roof of
correct.
the deck.
Yes, it's not shown now because those are very schematic drawings, but yeah, all the water from the roofs would be channeled into the appropriate dry well. And Susan was very specific about that. She was very concerned about erosion from the beginning. She told me that she wanted to make sure that she's already talked to engineers about it. So she's very concerned to not contribute to any erosion.
Thank you.
Good. Any other commissioners have something to say before we wrap up the discussion? Okay, I think that we should go to vote.
I don't think we have a motion.
That is a good point.
I guess the motion would be to approve, to give ANC approval to the relief sought by the homeowner and our recommendation to the BZA to grant said relief.
I will second that. I think we should call the roll call.
All right. Let's call the roll. That's Commissioner Elkins?
No.
Commissioner Blumenthal? I'm sorry, Commissioner Duncan?
Aye.
Commissioner Blumenthal?
Would have preferred to have stayed mute, but aye.
I'm voting no. Commissioner Nowak?
Aye.
Commissioner Simkowitz?
He's
So
muted, but I think he said no.
the vote is 3-3, so it does not pass. And if we had a resolution to the contrary, I think that would be 3-3 also. So should we just leave it at that? And that is ANC3D doesn't have a recommendation because it's tied. I'm not sure how to handle this.
Mr. Chairman, I think then there's room then for a resolution in which, no, I guess I take that back.
Well,
So can we ask Ms. Tamburini, when is or maybe Mr. Sullivan, when is the BZA hearing, and is this something in which the parties can work together and appear before us again in April, when perhaps we might have something different to vote on?
It's April 2nd.
So no, that'll be before our next meeting.
We also, because we are at a tie here, if we don't weigh in, then they give their testimony to the BZA, and they have the difficult task of deciding.
Yeah, we just
okay,
punt it to them. Yeah.
May I suggest that because we didn't approve it, we should oppose it? A tie vote is a defeat for the proponent. Based on that reality, I think we should vote to oppose.
Well, I think then our letter would show that when we send a letter to the BZA, it would say in a vote 3-3. So I think you're accurate, JP, but it isn't a 3-3 vote. So
And I recognize that, but it's odd that we have this tie, so it doesn't pass. So what does the BZA do with that? They just throw up their hands, probably.
This has never happened.
No, I think that if we made a motion to oppose, that would lose 3-3. So
well, it may not. I propose that we take a vote to oppose it now and give the BZA something to work with, because right now, they may just not do anything. We have no weight.
I second that motion.
All right. So the motion now is
So now the vote is to decline to
to oppose the,
support, to oppose.
And Commissioner
Okay.
Nowak, I agree with you that, you know, it may sound a little strange, and I would not be opposed to putting in language, something like, you know, we found that originally that we had a tie vote, you know, and a tie vote is you know, is a defeat for the applicant. Based on that tie vote, we oppose it now. You know, keep it simple like that.
so, so the motion is to oppose with language that explains that we had voted 3-3. All in favor, I guess again, we should do it, roll call. Is that understandable, Commissioner Elkins? Am I explaining this well enough? Okay, so it's a motion to oppose, but there'll be explanation. And let's have a roll call vote. Commissioner Elkins?
Yes.
Commissioner Duncan?
No.
Commissioner Blumenthal?
No.
I would vote yes. Commissioner Nowak?
No.
Commissioner Simkowitz?
Yes.
So that's 3-3, so that doesn't pass either.
Mr. Chairman, I have a motion
All right,
that the ANC3D write to the BZA and tell them about our vote, essentially that we were divided.
all right. Is there a second to that idea? Commissioner Simkowitz seconds. All in favor of that?
Can I speak first of all on that? I think that each person that voted or somebody from each side should put a statement in there so that you know, as people reading this letter can see that there were two sides and the following reasons for each side are blah blah blah.
I like that a lot.
Yeah, okay, that's good.
Mr. Chairman, just to elaborate on my motion, I do think it's important for 3D to be heard in front of the BZA on every one of these cases if possible. And I don't like the idea of our being silent. I think that shows that we were not paying attention. We've spent a lot of time here tonight in a good cause. And I think the BZA deserves to hear from us.
All right, very good. All in favor of that motion? 6-0. All right, we'll write a letter that explains. Let's move on to an update about Sibley Behavioral Health. Commissioner Duncan.
So, as we all know, and I would very much like anybody who is on the call, who might be a neighbor who is interested in this topic, to just let us know you're here. Sibley had a community meeting. I think a number of us were on there. There were a number of issues that didn't have anything to do with the emergency department. Concerns with neighbors who may have had a problem with the hospital's landscaping company or security, something or other. And then there were concerns from the neighbors about, is the hospital going to be this big draw to behavioral health? And are we going to have to worry for perhaps an increase of incidents that can happen when you live near a large institution where people might leave the hospital before they're discharged, or incidents where they are being let from the hospital, discharged, and they're sitting out near the bus stop like we have seen over at Georgetown Hospital. And it was unclear if those incidents had ever happened here or not. We didn't hear specific complaints about that. I passed around today a one-pager that the hospital sent to us that is what their emergency department discharge procedures are. And I thought that we were going to have some time to rehash this and get more feedback with the neighbors. But I found out earlier today from Miss Jordan, she's the government affairs person from Sibley, that DC is taking up this next week. And all they are required to do is inform the ANC. And if we don't weigh in, we are not going to be heard, and they're going to consider it with or without our input. So where I thought maybe earlier this week, we thought we were going to have nothing to vote on, I am thinking that tonight we might not want to lose this opportunity to maybe communicate our concerns with the hospital, get some ongoing dialogue, ask questions right now about the discharge procedures, but then we come up with something to vote on for a letter that we put forth, or else we're going to lose our opportunity. So I'm going to open this up to the other commissioners. Ms. Jordan is here for questions. If anybody has anything they want to add to this. Commissioner Elkins.
Madam Chairman, I'd like to share my screen so we can have a discussion with Ms. Jordan.
That sounds great.
Can everybody see my screen?
Not yet, but sometimes it takes a while.
It's a map. Do people see that?
No, it's not sharing yet.
Not yet.
Well, I think I'm sharing it. Let me try again.
There you go.
There. This is a map, as you can see, of the hospital. And over here in red, I've put a little square. This is the emergency room entrance. And over here is the bus stop. And Ms. Jordan, I wonder whether you could explain to us how a person who is leaving the emergency department and wanting to take the bus how would they get to the bus stop?
Good evening. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Hi. Hello, everyone. I just want to also clarify that we have our Vice President of Operations, Ms. Caroline Shapa, on the phone as well, on the call, I should say. And Caroline, could you opine on this, on the travel path?
Sure. Typically, if patients are going to the bus stop, they can come. So there's an elevator on the interior, and then exit through. And if you see where the star is, that's kind of the main circle of the hospital, and then walk up a sidewalk to the bus stop. That would be the most typical path.
So if I understand, they are in the emergency room. They are guided to a elevator, which we see here. People can see my cursor, and they end up here. Can come out the door, walk over here. Okay.
That's correct.
Okay.
Can I ask about like ride share? If people call an Uber or a taxi, where does that pick up in that?
Sure. So that would pick up back where the red square is off of Little Falls Road. So the patient would wait in the waiting area until their ride share arrives, and then they can meet the ride share at the emergency department circle in the back.
So what if you have a patient who does want to leave, and they are perhaps not as mobile as others, or maybe are not 100% mentally attentive at this point? I'm not sure the right way to phrase that. Would it be possible to have this person guided up here to the exit where I believe you're inpatient? At least my experience has been, if you're an inpatient, I see maybe it's the star now. Is instead of here, this is not the place. This is where I used to be picked up in the old days. But is it here in the star that where people who are inpatients are picked up and dropped off? Is that what I'm?
Yeah. Yes, that's correct. But the emergency department patients, it's typically more convenient for them to meet a ride share back where the red circle is. So certainly, if there was a reason that it would be more convenient for them to meet their ride where that clock tower circle is and the star, that would be absolutely fine as well. But we've
we tried to make it where it's the most convenient location for them
I
and
guess
what
I'm
they prefer.
concerned. I'm concerned about people taking the bus. And so this looks like quite a trip, actually, over here to the bus stop. And I'm wondering whether they may not make it.
So if a patient needs to take the bus, well, first of all, if they have a mobility challenge, we work with services besides the bus. So typically those patients, we would be using an Uber to get a ride share for them, or sometimes there is a van that can be used if they really have mobility challenges. They would not typically be going to the bus stop. Is that helpful?
Can I
If
just
somebody,
interject? I think it's since
Sure.
we're talking about an emergency room amendment specifically for patients with mental challenges, I don't think that mobility is the primary issue. And I don't want to speak for you, Commissioner Elkins, but that's my initial thought on that.
Yes,
We're
I
not
think
talking about wheelchair bound people, right? We're talking about
that's correct.
people.
Right. I think you phrased it much better than I did. So people who are there for the mental health section of the new section that's going to be in the emergency department, and they are
Okay.
being discharged, and they're going to take a bus. I am worried about whether they're going to get to this elevator, come out this door, and walk all the way over here to the bus stop.
I think it's also important to note that these individuals would only be released, and I don't know if that's the correct term to use, but once they're medically stable. And so through the process of screening and discharge planning, we would make sure that that person is fit and ready to leave on their own accord. If they were not, they would be connected with services that would be appropriate for them to get to their proper next stay or destination, whatever that may be. So let's say it's someone who comes, presents in the behavioral health ED, they end up stabilized, but in the course of our conversations with them, it's pretty clear that they are looking for an appropriate next place to go. We would connect them, our case coordination team would connect them with that appropriate resource. So that person we wouldn't just say, you're off, without knowing your destination. We would not just allow someone to leave. And Caroline, please correct me if I'm misstating anything there.
No, that's correct. And I'm sorry if I earlier misunderstood. I thought there was a question about mobility. So I apologize if I misunderstood. But yes, Rena, you're correct.
That was my mistake. Thank you. I think it might be helpful going forward so we can remember this as we go through months and years from now, is to maybe, if it's possible, to adjust the piece of paper that you provided to us and elaborate more on that. Your paper sort of ends before you get to this part of the discussion, I think. And it sounds to me like you do have an appropriate policy, but I'm not sure it's as well expressed as it might be. So I wonder whether you might be willing to take another look at that that piece of paper that you provided us, because that will be in the record in which we will want to come back to you if we have any problems or any concerns, rather, in the future.
Absolutely.
Yes, Commissioner Simcox.
Hi, Ms. Jordan. I don't know if you're aware, but we've had several complaints of Georgetown University MedStar Hospital releasing patients that had, because of their condition as unhoused, elderly, handicapped, they were released to the bus stop, and they were basically left to get home on their own. We had a hearing in maybe our October-November meeting where we discussed the appropriate transfer protocol for these people, and we never really got an answer out of Georgetown Hospital. And I know that that's a separate hospital, but what do you believe can be done for somebody that arrives after the work hours and departs? They're released, maybe at 8 o'clock at night or 9 o'clock at night. Do you have a transfer protocol in place with the city?
So this is Caroline Schaffa. I can speak to that if that's okay.
Please.
So our protocol for that situation is that we would ensure that the patient has an appropriate housing situation before they leave us. So if the person is unhoused, we work with the resources in the district. We would secure a bed for them at one of the local shelters, and we would provide a ride share for them to get to that shelter. And like because we are providing the ride share, we actually give the address to the driver of where to take them. So we want to be certain that we're getting them to a safe place. We've been working directly with our social workers and with the social workers from those shelters, because as you mentioned, there are certain times that they're not accepting admissions, but we would not send someone outside the hours that they can be accepted.
So what do you do with them? If the, and
So
if that's
we
the case, 'cause
continue,
that was the problem we had with Georgetown, is that, and I personally visited, addressed this, you know, I saw it happen, and I watched, there were people that were out there outside for several hours and presumably overnight. You know, I walked by one guy at 5 o'clock, 9 o'clock, and midnight, and he was still there the whole time. And this guy was elderly. You know, I called 911 on him, which presumably got him sent back to Georgetown and got him sent back to the street. I don't know if for a fact that happened, but he was there the whole time, and it was very sad as a human being to see this.
Yeah, sounds like a terrible situation. I just will reemphasize, we are incredibly focused on safe discharge. So part of that is making sure they have a safe place to go, they're going to get there safely, and that they have proper, you know, they have the right footwear. Do they have safe clothing for the weather? We would not send someone out into the elements without a plan for where they're going next.
But what happens, like in the case that I had, where I called 911 and they were back on the street, if they even went to the hospital again,
Yeah.
I called the shelter hotline. They said, we're out of beds. What does the hospital do when, you know, you're faced with that? It's now midnight and there's really nowhere for this poor person to go.
I mean, we would continue to keep the patient with us until there's a safe place for them to go. And we have crisis interventionalists, we have social workers, and they, like I said, are working with all the options in the city. So there are a number of shelters we work with, and it's happened before. This would not be a rare situation for us, to be perfectly honest. It's especially in the cold weather, we're really focused on making sure we can get them to a safe hyperthermia shelter. You know, so it's something we're super focused on, but we would hold them and provide a place for them to stay until there's a safe discharge plan.
Commissioner,
this is great news. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and Commissioner, you touched on a larger issue within hospital systems, not just in DC, but nationally, with issues of people needing to step down and not having an appropriate place to go to. So it is an issue that I have heard for as long as I've been in healthcare, unfortunately. And so it's something that we've seen exasperated over the years, and you know, something that I think the city has hopefully starting to put a little more attention to. You know, sadly, you know, we can only speak for Sibley, but some other hospitals have a much harder impact, as you indicated. So, you know, we try to do our very best, what we can do in terms of housing folks, but I can imagine how much harder this problem is for certain other.
Thank you.
And then we'll go to Commissioner Elkins.
All of that I'm hearing tonight is exactly what I would like to hear. It's a compassionate approach within reason that your department is taking into account, and all I'm asking is that you record that a little bit more in the piece of paper that you had. I did have one other issue that's very separate, but I wanted to wait until we saw whether there was any other. This was the major concern, I think, as I read it from some of the neighbors, and I think you've answered it, but I want to see whether any other neighbors or other commissioners have concern about. Then I wanted to raise a separate issue.
Very good. Commissioner Duncan?
So I wanted to just raise one other, it's more of a what should we do going forward So the neighbors have told us, multiple neighbors have told us about the incident that happened on Christmas Eve, where it was fairly obvious that this woman had come from the hospital because she still had an IV in her arm, which means she was not actually discharged. She probably left the hospital on her own. And, you know, the hospital's not a prison, people can leave. Um, if the neighbors, obviously they called 911 and the police came. But it seems to me that the hospital would want to know this, even if it's through email the next day. Ms. Jordan, are you our contact? Or like, are you the neighbor contact? Like, if someone sees someone with a hospital bracelet in the middle of Loughborough Avenue or Loughborough Road, like, we should call you.
1000%.
Okay.
1000%. Now,
Cool.
obviously, in the situation that you just said, that was more than appropriate. Call 911 first.
Yeah.
If you
Yeah,
see
yeah,
someone
absolutely.
going through that situation, that is, they are probably a danger to themselves, leaving with an IV in your arm, and that triggers different government services at that point. But at any time, if you feel as if you're seeing somebody who may be a patient of ours who maybe eloped or left without properly being discharged, please let me know. It may be something that we can and internally pair up, and if there's anything we can do, absolutely we'll do it. But please, I'll drop my information in the chat so that you guys have it, my phone number as well, so that even if it's a quick text,
Got you in my phone now.
you will have that information. And and if any other issues, anything related to Sibley, just feel free to use me, please.
Thank you.
Good. Commissioner Noah?
We've talked a lot about the discharge of patients, and thank you for your responses on that. I want to take a step back and thinking about the wait times in the ER today. Since COVID, certainly every ER has seen a change in wait times. But I think in those of us who have been around here for a minute, I can remember the days that, when you went to the Sibley ER to get a bone set or, whatever was going on, you were in and out, and it was just as pleasurable an experience as an ER could be. Those days are over. And my concern is mental health patients are very labor intensive for the staff. And it is my concern that the wait times will get longer for patients who present with any other illnesses or accidents. Can you speak to us about how the community writ large, our healthcare is just not going to be diminished because we have this new focus
Yeah.
on this particular patient subsegment?
Absolutely, and we're very sensitive to that. With this new ED, we will be staffing up accordingly. We understand that you can't bring this service on without bringing additional support to it. You're talking about a community that will need a different set of support, and so we certainly plan to hire the additional staff members to support that community, while making sure not to take away from individuals within our ED as it is today. Caroline, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, I'll just add, it's a great point. And today, the patients are already using beds in the ER. So what we're essentially doing is creating more spaces for the medical folks with a medical diagnosis. So if you're there for a broken bone, there's going to be more beds for you once we move these behavioral patients into a different area. So it should actually make wait times less, not more, because it will free up beds that are currently being used. And often, we're working on getting these patients, as Raina said earlier, transferred to a different level of care, or perhaps admitted, or perhaps moved to a different hospital where they would have different care. That can take quite a long time. And so there are beds today that are used for, it can be actually hours and days, getting appropriate placement when that bed is not available for medical diagnoses.
So that makes sense. Thank you. Just a quick follow-up though. Along with the extra staff, is Sibley going to be advertised as the go-to destination for a patient that might otherwise go to Georgetown emergency room, but because it's behavioral, the ambulances will be directed to take them to Sibley because you have the specialized ED?
We don't plan on advertising per se. I mean, certainly we will have, you know, the facility, but we would not have additional capacity necessarily. And we don't expect that ambulances would route. Typically, they are going to take their patients to either the closest hospital or where there's capacity available, especially for behavioral health patients. So it's not, I would not anticipate ambulances driving a long way to get to Sibley necessarily because of this facility.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Commissioner Elkins?
Well, I wanted to raise sort of a larger issue. I suspect that just like one of our earlier presenters earlier in the meeting, you may have found ANC3D a little strange, a little different. We are a little different from every other ANC probably, and I guess we probably found dealing with Sibley a little different than what we found in dealing with other institutions in the neighborhood. And I think I'm suggesting we learn from this experience, because I think I would like to see us mutually being able to work together when necessary. I don't think there are too many times when it will be necessary. I don't want to, there's not a lot of work here, but I'm been on this commission long enough to remember that in the old days, people would raise issues about staff parking in the neighborhood, et cetera, and we really couldn't get a rise out of the hospital about it. Those were the old days, before I'm sure before your time. So I'm just thinking that if we could, it took us from October to here we are in March to get here. That was way too long. And I think we didn't have as much neighborhood engagement as I think we might have had if we'd scheduled it better. So I'm asking sort of both the commission and the hospital to say, can we learn from this, and can we next time, when there is a next time an issue, that we orchestrate it better and be much quicker and be more, you understand us better and we understand you better, we get things solved better.
You absolutely have that commitment on behalf of Sibley, and I intend to. I've spoken to Commissioner Duncan about this already. This was a learning lesson. I've been before you guys before, but you know, but there are a lot of lessons learned, and so I certainly intend to be more of a familiar face and make sure that you guys see me as a regular point of contact and one that comes to mind whenever issues come up. And I've certainly appreciated this process and will use all of the lessons learned to make sure that they're smoother moving forward. So thank you so much.
That would be great. Thank you.
Very good. Commissioner Duncan?
I would like to add a little context to Commissioner Elkins' very good points that I agree with. But the elephant in the room is that the SMD, the commissioner who has the SMD that Sibley is in, is not here at this meeting, nor has he done 1 ounce of work on this issue. And he left it to his fellow commissioners. And I just needed to put that on the record because it's not right. And I suspect he did not show up tonight because I asked him for help, and perhaps some other commissioners had called him out. So I think that we also need to acknowledge that this was a lot on all of us. And hopefully we did right by the neighbors and hearing them out. And I do believe that we have a much better relationship with Sibley. So that is positive. But Commissioner Clone Roosevelt really let us down.
I have to second that. And I've told him so in no uncertain terms.
So how do we resolve the hospital. Do we have a resolution or?
Yes,
Okay.
if I could share my screen. Oh shoot, I've got too many windows open. So this is actually something that Clinton did do actually, and he had this letter. Can you all see this?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to make a motion that we approve this letter of support, and I am open to any and all amendments. Do I have a second?
I second. Can you show the rest of it?
Yes. Okay, so this is it's pretty boilerplate. Says we love Sibley. Talks about their behavioral health emergency department. Here's a paragraph that we probably need to agree on. A new behavioral health ED will reduce patient waiting time, add capacity, and create purpose-built spaces that can meet the needs of all patients better while protecting them from further harm. Sibley is planning to build a new behavioral health emergency department adjacent to the existing emergency department by converting space currently used for administrative purposes. ANC3D supports Sibley Memorial Hospital's request for a certificate of need from the State Health Planning and Development Agency, blah, 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 added duly noticed. Is there anything we want to add or take away from this?
Of course, the last paragraph has to have the date changed.
Also, I have a question for the Sibley group. Is there testimony at this thing, or do we just send this letter in?
Are you asking, does the public have an opportunity to testify?
Yeah.
Yeah, at the March 13th meeting, I believe that's the date, at the project review committee, the public can testify if you like, or you can just send it in.
Okay.
Can I ask a quick question going back to the operations of the new ED? Would the intake be the same as it is for people presenting with physical medical conditions? And then in the triage process, the person would be directed over to the behavioral health?
Yes.
Or do they go directly there?
This is Caroline. That's exactly right. So registration is in the same place. Triage would happen in the back in the same area, and then patients who qualify for that special unit would then be transferred into that special unit. There's not a separate check-in. Yes.
Okay. And if a person is presenting with both medical and behavioral symptoms, where would they go?
Yeah, so that's a little bit case dependent, because if their behavioral symptoms are more related to anxiety and depression, then they may be treated on the medical side, and then the psychiatrist would see them there. If their medical condition is more severe, if their behavioral health condition is more severe, it could be that the most appropriate setting is a behavioral health ED. So almost everyone falls somewhere on that spectrum, and it's really a determination by the triaging physician.
Okay, so they'll have access to all the same protocols, and if they need an X-ray or they need a CT.
Yes, absolutely.
Do we want to add in here that they came before us X number of times and we had a community meeting, and do we want to add any of that?
That might help. I think a sentence or two might, because this is not just a pro forma decision by this commission.
Okay, I'm going to
They would authorize you,
yeah,
Commissioner Duncan, to add an appropriate sentence about the community engagement.
All right, are we ready to vote on this?
Yep, let's call the question.
Let's call the question. Okay, all in favor of this letter, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. So we have 6. So that letter is done. The next thing on the agenda is.
Before we go on, I'd like to
Yes.
thank Ms. Jordan for being so attentive to these needs. And I hope that she is attentive to the point where she can give us some advice on working with Georgetown Hospital. It's not that Georgetown Hospital is doing necessarily bad things. I think they reflect the reality of not being able to handle these kind of problems on their own. And we need the city's involvement.
Thank you very much. I'm willing to help in any capacity.
Thank you.
Thank you. Very good.
Thank you both.
So the next thing on the agenda was the Bang Bop liquor settlement agreement, and Commissioner Nowak, my understanding is that we're going to put that off till next month, correct?
Yes, yes. The update is that it is in the hands of the licensed applicant. His initial response was he did not anticipate any problems, but we'll vote on the final settlement agreement next month. And thank you, Commissioner Elkins, for your amendment, your edits. I did incorporate those into the document.
Very good. The next matter is the stormwater retention letter. Commissioner Duncan?
Yes, the motion on the floor is to send, it's actually two letters. They're virtually identical, one to Councilmember Allen and one to Mayor Bowser, about the long-term funding of the stormwater retention. The Transportation Committee spent, well, do I have a second for my motion?
Yes, I second.
Thank you. Discussion.
Thank you.
The
Yes.
Transportation Committee worked on this. Derry Allen, who could not be here tonight, did the majority of the work on this, so I wanted to give him a shout out. But we are facing big budget cuts, and the funding is already here to build these things, and we're just afraid they're going to be eyesores. So the letters essentially are asking the city to look to DC Water's stormwater fees to get some long-term funding for maintenance of this. I think it's a great idea. Mr. Allen, this is Derry Allen, testified on the Oversight Committee hearing. So Councilmember Allen is aware of this, and I think a follow-up letter might actually get something moving forward. So I'm asking for everyone's support here.
Any
questions?
Questions or conversation about this? I think this is a pretty non-controversial letter. All in favor of this letter? 6 votes for. The next is the Better Bus proposal for Foxhole and Q. Commissioner Duncan.
A motion on the floor is to write in a letter of support for the notice of intent from DDOT for a minor modification at the intersection of Q and MacArthur. Do I have a second?
Is there a second?
Sorry.
Yeah, one second.
Commissioner Nowak?
Okay, so Better Bus Initiative, they are looking at all the bus sizes and turns all over the city. We got one NOI because that's how few bus lines we have. But it's not any infrastructure. As the buses are making the turn at Q and MacArthur, they are doing the stop line for, they're moving back a stop line about 6 feet for the cars in the second lane so that the bus can do a turn. If anyone is really interested, I can pull up the drawing, but the Transportation Committee reviewed this and we all thought it looked hunky-dory.
Very good. Any discussion about this? Okay, all in favor? 6 votes in favor. The last of the official actions is Foxhole Road safety letter. Commissioner Duncan?
Yes. Motion on the floor is to send a letter of support for a notice of intent for some safety improvements at the 1800 block of Foxhole Road. Do I have a second?
I second, yes.
Can you remind us what the cross street is at 1800?
So this is near St. Patrick's Field. In fact, Commissioner Elkins and Commissioner Blumenthal, you all were at the Transportation Committee. Do you think it's worth it to pull this up so that people see what the changes are? Or I have it here.
I think not. It's
Not okay.
it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, so there was a big accident here and they're gonna have all can someone describe the
It's a median. There's a median there with a sign to help motorists see that the median is there so they won't run into it.
yeah. It's like they've got some paint and a median, and then all the intersections are gonna have no turn on red signs.
So they're adding no turn on red signs, which they are doing on any intersection where they're doing any construction.
Right.
Because they're all supposed to be no turn on red. So it's not specific to that intersection, it's just because they're doing work there. So up go the signs.
But in terms of the median itself, it's just paint?
Are they expanding some of the median? It's hard to tell.
I don't want to say they are because I can't remember.
This is so this is the one that's up by the entrance to the field. Which is different than the median at Reservoir and Foxhall, where we have asked them to increase the size of the median.
Here, I have it right here. I'm gonna share. Okay, hopefully you're seeing the right screen. Do you see this?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so this is up here is the St. Patrick's field entrance.
Oh, so
And
this
then-
is looking going southbound. The bottom is southbound where the yellow is.
Yeah,
Yes,
this part right here.
Okay.
right. It's the yellow part that's new. And just paint.
I mean, it seems, you know, the funny thing is they did this in response to someone dying here. But then we later found out that it was like at 1:30 in the morning and the person was 88 years old driving.
Now, no age discrimination.
Sorry.
I'm watching you guys.
Yeah, I would like to retract that from the record. Sorry. Anyway, yeah, and I think that the black arrows there, that's still the same merge that they have. And then this is just, yeah, I think it's just paint.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other
merge area
questions about
marking.
this?
And so they're gonna do some merge area markings, retro reflective signal, black plates, and warning signs on all the existing islands. And they think that, you know, people will be able to see it better.
Very good. Any other comments about this? All in favor of this resolution? 6 votes in favor. Okay, let's move to commission business. The treasurer's report, Commissioner Elkins.
Yes, I posted those on the website, but I can just summarize that we're in good financial condition, as you would expect. There are 5 actions that have taken place between January and now. There's the check that was written to Commissioner Nowak to pay for the transcribing, which she paid the transcriber. We have 2 checks written to our administrator, Ms. Blakely, and we have 2. This is the best news. We've had about $8,800 added to our account because they finally approved the first 2 quarters of last fiscal year. They're real close to approving the 3rd quarter. So I think we're in good financial shape, and we'll have the quarterly review for voting in the next quarter.
Very good. Any questions about the treasurer's report? Very good. Let's move on to the administrator's hourly rate. Commissioner Nowak, do you have a resolution or?
I do. So I stand to ask the commission to approve an increase in the hourly rate for our administrator from the current $25 an hour to $33 an hour. Do I have a second?
Second, Commissioner Simkowitz, go on.
Thanks. So as you saw in my email on this topic, Catherine was brought on at a rate that we were paying our former administrator. It goes without saying that the level of performance is substantially at a higher level than our former administrator. And also I did a quick search on what the market rate would be, and $25 was well below the market rate. So I had initially requested that we do this back to January, but because Catherine is not an employee, that would be problematic. Therefore, it is amended to be effective with her March invoice and through the remainder of this fiscal year. And it'll be a contract amendment. Any questions?
Or
Comments?
just one slight, just to make sure that's clear, the contract, unless we change it, essentially says it continues. So it would continue past the end of the fiscal year, unless we took action. Let's say we had a real budget cut, we just couldn't afford it. We had to cut back our hours or whatever. But that, otherwise, the contract with the administrator continues and does not end at the fiscal year. It continues, and one would expect it then to continue at that rate, unless we want to change our what you're recommending.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
Other discussion? Seeing
Approve,
none?
approve.
Yes, all in favor?
Aye.
6 votes in favor. Very good. Next is the approval of minutes. Commissioner Nowak.
Thank you all who provided February feedback. It has been incorporated in the draft, which is available on the website. May I have a second on a motion to approve the February minutes?
Second.
Commissioner Duncan seconds.
Discussion? Okay.
Seeing none, all in favor of approving the minutes?
Aye.
6-0.
Mr. Chairman, I had one other formal topic to bring up. I think all of you, if you read your email, saw that I sent out an email to all ANC commissioners looking to what I hope is never going to happen, but I believe in planning ahead, and a number of our colleagues and other ANCs agreed on that, and we met and talked about what we should do. And as that applies to this ANC, I'm not worried about being able to contact you if we initiate the ANC contact alternative communication system, so that's not an issue. With regard to protecting our ANC resources for use if in fact ANCs no longer exist, I want to work with Catherine to make sure that we are backing up our Dropbox account so that we have it in case we get cut off of our Dropbox account. I did pay for the Dropbox account this time around out of my personal funds and have not yet asked for reimbursement, with the thought that we'll wait to see if DC home rule goes away in the next month or two. Otherwise, I will be asking for reimbursement. I think we need to find a way to download our website in such a way that we could duplicate it if we lost it. We don't really have, except in one case, we don't really have the email addresses of our constituents as an ANC resource. The one place we may have some are in District Engage, and I intend to take a look at that and see before that contract ends what we want to do with those email addresses. But otherwise, I think we're in reasonably good shape if we suddenly had lost our email from Octo and if we were dismissed from service. So if anybody has any comment, that'd be welcome.
I think since our primary method of communicating with constituents is via the listservs, that will continue and is outside the purview of OANC or Octo. So I think we're good there. Is it safe to assume that you're taking similar actions on the Transportation Committee, where I know you have a lot of a deep archive of?
Well, they're all on, those archives are on the Dropbox, I believe.
Okay, great.
So of course, OANC is nervous about the fact that, Chuck sent out another one of his crazy emails. So they immediately
Someone snitched.
And somebody passed it on, and that's okay. I didn't want to involve them because I hope they keep their jobs. And I didn't want to make them co-conspirators. But they, of course, didn't get that message.
Can I, are you finished with that item? Because I
Yes,
wanted to ask you, did we want to mention the idea that we might want to do an engineering study for Foxhall and Reservoir?
Oh, you should mention that, yes.
Yeah, okay, so there is a letter that Andrew Heimert and Andrew Beath have drafted to send to DDOT to do a real study to redo that intersection at Reservoir and Foxhall. Make it safer for pedestrians, get the cars through. And the letter basically has a list of ideas, but then it says, what we really want you to do is figure out if we can turn this into a traffic circle. Like
A roundabout.
A roundabout. And we decided at the Transportation Committee that they're never going to look at it being a roundabout if we give them a whole list of other things that they can do. So and I'm open to suggestions or, thoughts on this. We thought that we might be able to enlist a traffic engineer ourselves just to see if the square footage of the space is big enough for a roundabout that will also hold all of the traffic. Like, can you get a circle that will do those traffic counts big enough at that intersection? And so I put out, I sent it to 2 groups. I haven't heard back from anybody. Have you heard back from anybody, Chuck?
No, I have not.
Yeah, so I don't know how much this would cost, but we thought maybe it would be, I don't know, a couple $1,000s.
So
they could take the traffic counts from the city, so it's not like they'd have to get traffic counts.
I encourage you to see if we can use the technical assistance fund for this.
Oh.
I think the problem with that, I'd have to go back, but I think they tightened up the rules on that and said that you cannot get that money if you have a lot of money in your budget. And we have $33,000 at this point. But so we plead poverty.
I don't mean to rain on the parade, but aren't we prohibited from using these kind of expenditures when DDOT provides that exact service, or should?
No, that's when we give a grant.
Extra grants.
But contracting, we're not prohibited from that.
Have we asked DDOT to do that?
We have not.
Maybe we should start there, and if they reject us, then we do this.
I think we'll get crickets from them, but
That might be the answer, but you know, if 2 months go by and we don't have that, maybe we should then expend our money.
All right, well, hopefully by next month, we'll have an idea of how much it would cost. And in the meantime, we can ask DDOT.
Thank you, Commissioner Duncan. I think that
Is
would
it
be
a good idea to if we ask DDOT right away and get that clock sort of ticking while you're going through the inquiry process, the RFP process for how much it would cost to have those things running in parallel?
well, if we wanted to have that come as a letter from the ANC, then we'd have to wait till next month to send that. I suppose it could come from the Transportation Committee as sort of an informal inquiry. What do you think, Commissioner Duncan?
I think informal might be, you know, if you could get it to some traffic engineer who was just dying to design a roundabout, you know, maybe just a email from the Transportation Committee might be good.
We might ask Ted Van who we ought to talk to in the department.
Okay.
You know, so he would understand the need, you know, our interest in it. He might be able to point us to the right person.
At this juncture, we're just at a feasibility study, right? We're not actually asking them to design a roundabout. We're just saying, will it fit?
Yes.
Right, and then the thought in the Transportation Committee was we would probably then have to go to Councilmember Fruman to get some money in the budget, which this year is highly unlikely to fund it, because a real study of a roundabout would probably be reasonably expensive.
I need to read what this guy is saying. 342 million each year for the next 3 years.
Well, and I bet it's even worse now that if things get worse every day in terms of what's happening to the district financially, I think. But that is a huge cut.
Yeah, I'm just not seeing it. I mean, even with the cuts, they are bringing most people back to the office. I don't know. I don't get it.
Well, we may get a cut to the ANC allocation. Depends on, you know, where they're looking, I mean, for cuts, so.
Okay, is there anything else?
Next meeting, April 2nd.
The next meeting is April 2nd. So hearing no other matters that we need to address, I move that we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Thank you, Catherine.
Thank you all. I do appreciate your vote of confidence there. Thank you so much.
Well, it's because of your performance.
Yes.
It's a good team. It's a good team.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you. Good night.
Take care.